Welcome, everyone, to the Aspen City Council meeting of June 9th. It is one of our regular meetings, and I will ask Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Councillor Benedetti.
Here.
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Richard.
Here. Thank you. We have no scheduled public appearances today. We will move directly into citizens' comments and petitions. Is there anyone online or in the room who would like to speak to us? Tony? Just identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. For the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and I'd like to bring up it's either one or two things for me. Either it's a swimming pool or it's transportation. So today I'm going to focus on transportation. And I have a question, and I know you can't answer it right now, but I think we do need an answer sooner than later. And that was, I'm wondering, has the city of Aspen abandoned the light rail, which was approved in the 1998 Record of Decision? And the reason I ask is because this council did not include in the current reevaluation being done by Jacobs Engineering, a reevaluation of the light rail to make sure the light rail is still a valid mass transit system. And in order for the light rail to move forward, it's got to be reevaluated. So to me, it appears that either we've abandoned it or it's a dead idea, the light rail, especially because it's not included in the reevaluation. And then the next thing, it's taken 20 years, which is 5 years shorter than it did for the Aspen swimming pool, but it finally happened. The VI.A. approved an airport layout plan for our airport, which includes a space reservation large enough for a high-speed mass transit aerial gondola capable of transporting 4,500 passengers per hour. Then on May 27th, just a couple weeks ago, the Board of County Commissioners approved the airport modernization plan, which included the same space reservation for a high-speed mass transit aerial gondola capable of transporting 4,500 passengers per hour. We also know that Paepcke County is now the proud owner of the Brush Creek Park and Ride and is undertaking a management plan for the transportation hub between Snowmass, Aspen, and Down Valley communities. As you know, I think you probably know, my goal is to have Brush Creek Park and Ride to be the first stop on the yet-to-be-approved Highway 82 Aspen aerial connection called the Aspen Sky Cap. Then yesterday, during the work session that you had with the Aspen Skiing Company, on slide 27, the Aspen Skiing Company brought forward for discussion our commitments and our asks, what we commit to and where we need partnership. One of the things that they've committed to, which was point 3, is we will advocate for innovation, mass transit, and priorities, including reducing single occupancy vehicle trips through our operations and how we communicate with guests. And this is the ask that was not discussed yesterday, but was an ask on the slide by the ski company where we need to have partnerships. And one of the points, point 3, it says an innovative transit mindset. We need a new mindset to deal with this transportation, which is interconnected planning, continued openness to new solutions, that is an aerial transit, a purpose-built mass transit airport, which we do now have with the 2 approvals that I just spoke of, and a completed entrance to Aspen. So as I said yesterday, there was no discussion on that particular point, so I just want to know which Aspen City Council member wants to bring a work session or something
Tony, your time is up, but thank you
it.
for your comments and recounting the meetings and information we've all received. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? There being none, I did see a hand go up for a moment from Alex Young online, but now the hand is gone. I don't know if that's someone else.
He's a neighbor of the 320 project.
Oh, okay. That will be coming up later on. This is for comments that are not on the agenda. We will be having the public hearing of that a little later on. Thank you. So we will now close the public comment period and move on to special orders of the day. This is council members and mayor's comments. Want to start at that end with you, John, tonight?
Sure. Was just noticing the drought monitor and the report from the Roaring Fork Conservancy earlier this week. The report came out on June 4th, and this is what it said. Rivers in the Roaring Fork watershed continue to flow below average at 21 to 62% of normal for this time of year. With all 9 local snow-till sites out of measurable snowpack, stream flows are beginning to decrease at a time of year when they're typically rising towards peak. Long-term drought impacts such as increased wildfire risk, low flows, and water shortages are front of mind in the midst of this historically poor runoff season. As such, the National Interagency Fire Center is forecasting an above-average wildfire season across western Colorado. Starting today, we will include weekly high water temperature measurements from the USGS gauges at the Roaring Fork River in Glenwood and Emma. Water temperatures are already tracking well above average across the watershed. Anglers, if you don't already own one, now is the time to secure a thermometer as we approach summer. And it was reported that 100% of Pickens County is still in the highest level of drought. And this, the drought monitor shows that it's the area that's covered in the most extreme level of drought is grown to include 100% of Eagle County, 95% of Lake County, and parts of 9 other counties in the northwestern part of our state. The Roaring Fork River here in town is flowing at 75 cubic feet per second. The average is 352 feet per second for this time of year. The Frying Pan below VI.A is flowing at 110 cubic feet per second. The yearly average is 346. The Colorado River in Glenwood is flowing at 3,010 cubic feet per second. The average for this time of year is 10,162 feet per second. Roaring Fork, the VI.A reservoir is 69% full and is not expected to rise very much. I'm glad that, again, that the city's taking this drought seriously, that we went into stage 3 water restrictions. The state has recently gone into stage 3. So it's not just us. Please be considerate when using water wherever you are in our city and county.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Christine?
I was up at VI.A this weekend, and it's pretty dismal. And I was surprised that fire restrictions weren't in place yet. I reached out to one of our commissioners last week and was just told today that Pickens County will be instituting stage 1 fire restrictions tomorrow. And that limits where some fires can be built and what type of equipment can be used. But we will be moving into stage 1. The Forest Service will not be issuing fire restrictions right now, which is confusing to the public. That's all the information I have.
It's good information.
Yeah, and then on a lighter note, the Farm Collaborative, which is out at Cozy Point Ranch, which the city of Aspen owns, they have their official opening this weekend for their new farm center and farm market. There's a party from 12 to 4, and there is a market out there now that's open and operating 6 days a week with local food and produce. So go on and visit.
Cool.
Thank you. Sam, no comments? Bill, no comments today? Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of comments, and I'll just kind of follow up on the water side of things a little bit, because this means that we are in a very high likelihood of wildfire. But we have seen some really great compliance from our citizens of Aspen and those who are outside the city limits in our irrigation system. There's still some more who need to think about it and come online and readjust the systems with their landscape and irrigation tees. But we've seen a reduction, and we need to keep seeing that reduction. Everyone knows we do not have a reservoir. We have a flow of the river supply. And frankly, this drought is at such levels that the state has never seen before. The River District is beginning to have to go up the ladder of priority from juniors to seniors in certain areas across the whole state, and turn people off and turn off junior rights so that senior rights get their full share. We've never really seen that before. And I have sat in and listened to calls about how the historic user pool, the reservoirs we have in Wolford and Green Mountain are used. And it's usually a little bit of a discussion or debate among farmers and ranchers about when to release the water for their crops. This is the first time the historic user pool has been called into action to cover municipal water contracts. And so there's the law of the river is overwhelming what is just Aspen's reservoir. Aspen's flows into that reservoir. It is now the law of the river taking hold over who has senior rights and who gets their full demand of water. So continuing to keep ourselves diligent, use water only when you need. You can hand water small gardens before 8 a.m., after 6 p.m. Otherwise, we are in major restrictions right now. So keep it up and pray for rain. The other thing I really want to talk about, which is a lot more fun, a little more spectacular, is the summer spectacular that the Paepcke County Senior Center is hosting this Thursday, June 18th. It will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and they're going to have refreshments, including samples from their kitchen, which put out some really good food, and information on their events, fitness classes, programs, and resources. So just stop by. I went last year. It was an awful lot of fun. They had some live music. They have a lot of fun swag to give away, and it's a chance to meet the people who assist all of us up at the Senior Center. It's something that everyone will eventually end up using. So thank you very much for that. And we will now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is board reports. Actually, it's agenda amendments. Do we have any agenda amendments tonight?
None this evening.
No, we don't. Okay.
Mayor, if I may, actually.
Yes.
My understanding is, with respect to the first reading items, you were going to move, I believe it's Ordinance 13 to be heard before Ordinance 12, and I just wanted to sort of.
Yes, thank you on that. This was a request we had and said that we could because of childcare issues, but it did not get printed in the agenda that way. I apologize, so it will just be a slight delay. First reading of ordinances are generally not a long period of time. So we are going to reverse the order. Do I need a motion to do that or anything else? No. Okay, of those two items. Thank you very much. So are there any city manager comments tonight?
A couple quick community announcements.
And then just why don't you introduce yourself since Pete's not here?
Sure. I'm Tyler Kristoff, the Deputy City Manager, taking over for Pete Strecker this evening.
Thank you very much.
Couple quick community announcements. The community survey is now open. The city issues a biannual survey that's mailed out to randomly selected residents. So please check your mailboxes and take the survey. We encourage residents to participate as it helps us better understand local priorities, assess satisfaction with city services, and guide future decision-making. You can also go to aspencommunityvoice.com to sign up and take the survey as well. We have a second event this weekend, Saturday, June 13th. It's a paint drop-off. The city of Aspen, in partnership with Green Sheen Paint, invites Roaring Fork Valley residents to dispose of their old and leftover paint for free. Again, Saturday, June 13th from 9 to 1 p.m. at Basalt High School. And you can find more information on that on our website and social media. We encourage attendees to sign up and book a time slot, as there's some limitations to that event. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We would now move on to board reports. Do you have any updates since our last regular meeting? No? Okay. Any board report updates?
I have one.
Okay, please.
I joined the Northwest Council of Governments on Thursday, and the most interesting thing from that meeting was the organization hired a consultant to interview 100 leaders from 25 communities, everyone who's a part of the group, and there are no surprises in the results about housing being the #1 issue affecting a lot of our neighboring communities. What I think they reported that was more interesting is that it's now a foundational issue for many communities. Everyone's identifying it as something that affects every part of the community, from workforce to healthcare to childcare to the economy. And so it's not an issue that's in a silo anymore, and it's really systemic. And the second issue that rose had and was surprising to the consultant is that water scarcity is becoming a top issue for communities in the mountains. And I think given this year and what we're seeing, that's not necessarily a surprise, but had not been one that had risen to the top before. So,
Very good, very good. I just wanted to, I should have mentioned this during my comments, but to thank Aspen Health, formerly Aspen Valley Hospital, for their health fair this past weekend. I think they do a great job offering those sort of services to people, and they're really a great partner for all of our community. Last week, I attended a seminar in Glenwood Springs that was put on by the Aspen Institute and the Hearst Family Foundation, Hearst Initiative, to focus on regionalism and how the various counties can unite around common issues. It was really just a preliminary meeting on a project that's supposed to last for close to a year, and they're modeling after a project that's happened in the northern part of Colorado to bring counties together that did not necessarily feel they had common interests in the past, and to see what commonalities they had. So Pete and a number of our staff participated as well, so it was a good showing of Aspen being there with the concerns. Thursday was the Colorado Municipal League District 11 meeting, which was held down in Newcastle, and John attended with me down there. It's very nice to meet your other community leaders and hear what their big issues are. And I've mentioned it before, but when you talk about the I-70 corridor, their issues are growth. And, you know, we just approved a 600-unit subdivision, and we're just approving a 1,000-unit subdivision. And you think about approving all those houses in towns that don't have the jobs for those people, where are they really going to end up on the road? And so that's a bit of a challenge. And then, of course, we're all getting ready for the upcoming larger annual CML conference in June. So those are really the only extra meetings I had since our last meeting, and we can move on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you. So we have a consent calendar, and I will read through these and see if anybody wants to pull anything. We have resolution number 70, series of 2026, the Wheeler Opera House digital advertising services. Resolution 76, of series of 2026, approval funding for the remodel of 161 Mining Stock Parkway, Unit 201. Resolution 077, series of 2026, civil and electrical design, Bishops to Paepcke Park circuit replacement for our electric services. Resolution number 78, series of 2026, the Aspen Recreational Center locker replacement contract, and the draft minutes of May 26, 2026. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Sam. Is there?
I don't want to pull it, but I'd love to
Have
talk
discussion?
about
Sure.
76 briefly. I don't
Okay.
need to vote on it separately.
Okay. I believe this is a unit that there was basically a forced eviction over time because of the disruption the owner had made to the neighbors, including flooding out her own unit and the other neighbors' units. And so this was beyond a normal move-out type of situation, and we are getting this ready to be able to resell.
Thanks for that.
Go ahead and ask.
Matthew, and that's helpful context. I assumed it was something like that, and it's good that we've taken action there. My question for you is, what are the consequences and repercussions for somebody who neglects and abuses this community asset?
Bill, could you say that again? Somebody.
What are the consequences and repercussions for somebody who behaves that way and destroys their physical property?
That person is now.
I view that unit as a piece of community property, a community asset, as you've alluded to many times, as our subsidized housing inventory is. And this is somebody who's willfully done damage. It's not just old.
Right.
It's not wear and tear. This is like willful damage on a community asset. So what are their consequences? What are their repercussions? How do they suffer from what they've done?
Well, they will be put on the APSHA ineligibility list, so they will no longer be able to go either rent or buy through APSHA. But we were able to do that within our powers, but as to any criminal or other action, we do not have the authority to do that. But we are making sure those people, and we've done it several times in the past few months, that people are put on the ineligibility list and are excluded from the program.
Great. What about financial?
We do not have that ability.
Why?
Legally, I'd have to consult with the lawyers to give you the details of exactly why, but we don't have the power to do that. And also, in this particular situation, we had to balance, because there were competing lawsuits taken by the residents of the community, and we had to balance the needs of that community and the need of APSHA to be made whole with the much more expedient process of actually getting this person out of that unit so that the neighbors could live safely. And that was made clear to us in our discussions with the neighbors that that was the priority. So I understand where you're coming from, but we spent, I was about to say several, I think it was more than several years. I was fielding calls from the residents of this community weekly, begging us for help. We took every possible opportunity we could, and in the end, we were able to work something out so it didn't go strictly to an eviction. This person did leave voluntarily under duress, but it's a very difficult situation, and our real responsibility was to getting this person out as quickly as possible to assist the neighbors who were suffering.
Got it. I'm glad you did, and I'm hopeful that this is not a frequent
It is very,
so far,
very weird.
To the best of my knowledge, it hasn't been.
No.
But I'd request that you do a little bit of thinking.
Yes, sir.
On disincentive from similar behavior in the future.
I think that's a great idea, Bill.
Yeah.
It's really hard to gauge what is deliberate negligence or malfeasance versus perhaps aging a unit, but to the extent possible, I think it's something great to have your legal team take a look at and see if can be amendments to the deed of sale is really where the power would lie.
Yeah, we will definitely look at that. In this particular case, I cannot overstate what a difficult situation this was for the residents in that community and how desperate they were for this situation to be resolved.
I received a number of emails, and we were communicating on that regularly. But thank you for bringing that up. It is a good point, and you learn from all the issues you have to go through. So
That's it for me.
we have a motion and we have discussion. Is there any other comments? Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor
Matthew.
Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes, thank you. We have no notice of call-ups, and we are now going to go to the first reading of ordinances. As I said before, we're going to reverse the order and take ordinance number 13 first. I think that means you must leave the room.
Leave. Thanks. Take it easy on Lisa, please.
Sure, yeah. I'll do mine. Yeah, you do that. I think that makes the most sense. I hate it when staff comes second. All right. Let me see what I need to do here.
So this is just first reading, and we would have more of the full presentation as second reading.
Correct.
Thank you.
Let me get it pulled up here. All right, good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and council members. Am I on here?
Yes.
My name is Dan Folk. I'm the planning director, and I'm going to present a couple items for you. The first one tonight is first reading of Ordinance 13, Series of 2026 for the property at 150 North 8th Street. We've got a couple items tied in with this request. One is a floor area variance, a major amendment to a subdivision, and then GMQS review. I'm not quite sure how to, there we go. There's full screen. Oops, it just went back. So the property that we're looking at tonight is located at 150 North 8th Street, shown here on this site location map. I don't think that's me doing that. No? Okay. So like I said, the property's at 150 North 8th Street. You can see it here. It's oriented between Bleecker and Main Street, kind of on the west side of town. The zoning is RMF, residential multifamily, which allows a number of uses, including single-family duplexes and multifamily units. There is a cap restriction for multifamily units at 2,000 square feet, so each unit is not supposed to exceed 2,000 square feet, and that's relevant for the variance that you're considering with this request. And so it's an existing unit. It's part of a 3-unit building. Waiting for this text to pull up. There's a floor plan here that I think is loading. It doesn't show it on my screen either. I'm not sure what's going on. There it is. Okay. And so it's an existing unit with a basement, and currently there's about 700 plus square feet. In the basement, it has a bedroom, a bathroom, and I believe like a common area, like a playroom. The proposal is to expand that by approximately 1,000 square feet into an area that's essentially a crawl space. And so there's no addition to the exterior of the building. It's all interior change. Oh, there it is. So that's the existing floor plan of the lower area. The crosshatched area is currently improved, like I said, with a bedroom, bathroom, and a common area, and I believe a laundry room. And then here's what's proposed for the lower area. So to expand it, again, by approximately 1,000 square feet and reconfigure what's there now. So you'd have a couple bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, I believe, 2 bathrooms, a laundry room, and a playroom, family room. And so here's some of the history. In 2012, it was a duplex with 2 units, and you've got the size of those units there, Unit A and B. Unit A was larger at over 3,000 square feet. Unit B, just under 700. And in 2012, the City Council approved adding a 3rd unit. It's an affordable housing unit, and so those are summarized below. At that time, Unit A was decreased in size to just under 3,000 square feet. Unit B was approved to expand up to 2,000, and then there is an affordable housing unit that was approved at 400 square feet, 401.
Is that a rental unit or an ownership unit?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know.
I believe it's a rental.
We believe it's a rental.
Maybe for the next reading, if you find out in what category it was they gave us.
It's a Category 2, according to the record, yeah. So here's just a summary in terms of the unit that we're looking at 150. And so like I said, the zone district has a 2,000 square foot maximum size limitation. It was approved at 2,952. When the application came in, this was mentioned in the staff report, the actual unit is 3,471 square feet. We believe this difference is really kind of how they were looking at floor area maybe back in 2012. And so the actual right now is 3,400. And then again, the request is to increase that by about 1,000 square feet. We're not going to go through all the criteria tonight. We'll do that at second reading. But I did want to just mention the 3 sections of the code. And really the main issue, I believe, is the requested variance and whether it meets that criteria. Staff is unable to make a finding in the affirmative. Really, looking at bullet 2, the idea that this is the minimum variance that will allow reasonable use, the fact that the property is developed and they currently enjoy more than what the zoning would allow, it's difficult for staff to make that finding that they don't have reasonable use. And then again, enforcement, this is the criteria for a variance, that enforcement of the code would deprive the applicant of rights enjoyed by others and causes an unnecessary hardship. Again, staff is unable to make that finding in the affirmative based on the current use. So this did go to planning and zoning back in December. They did recommend denial. You've got the resolution attached in your packet. We have received public comment, I believe all in support of the request, and those were emailed to you. We received them from Patrick, and we'll put them in the packet for second reading. And so at this point, staff is just recommending that you set this for public hearing. I guess you read the ordinance for the first time tonight, and then you set the public hearing. We're recommending for July 14, at that time where you would take public comment and do second reading.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me, or?
Is there any questions on council for answering at second reading?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was reading the packet, and I just want to express the somewhat awkwardness about this being about a fellow council member. But the questions I wanted to ask were more precedent questions, as far as has this ever been granted before, as far as use of a crawl space into living area? I just haven't heard of that, so just knowing more about that. Want to understand that the use of the crawl space would be going deeper and not upward. I assume you're digging, or, yeah, digging?
No, no, it's actually existing. I have a picture, Sam, that I can show that shows this space. It's existing crawl space that would be finished off to livable standards. So no digging.
What's the height currently?
It's probably it's over 5'6". I think it's taller than head height, but it's not a full 8-foot standard floor to ceiling height.
Okay. Not to go over the whole history of it, but I'd love to just like weirdly talk about crawl spaces and why we have them and like the need for them in our code as far as their usage goes, because I know they are very important spaces to make a home function. I sort of wanted to hear from you, Ben, about the main reason in the code to limit square footage in certain zone districts and why that's considered important. Some of the things I would allude to is whether the code would need to be changed versus accepting the applicant's application, stuff like that, as far as whether this is a good idea or not. I was kind of curious, I didn't hear the explanation of why the difference in actual living space between now and 2012. It sounds like it went up 500 feet, but I didn't necessarily hear why that was.
Would you answer that now, or, I mean?
We're going to do that second
Later.
reading.
Okay. And then lastly, I think one of the biggest things from a community perspective is a lot of applicants come here with a very genuine explanation as to why they want something, but then some of them turn around and sell afterward. No, I know. It's not an accusation, just like one of those like discomforts with being on P&Z prior to this and being on council is like you never know, and obviously beyond
Plans change.
beyond the benefit, like this is obviously would potentially be a financial boon as well. So just, I don't know how to turn it into a question, but discussing about protections of just like that people can't come and just ask to use their crawl spaces and then sell afterwards, because it really makes almost the reason why moot in a way, depending on why our code says this is not allowed. Yeah. So just those overall discussion points is what I'd love to hear for second reading.
I think that's great. That's a great list. Other questions or comments for second reading?
I just have
staff.
one follow-up question on the, sorry for stepping out. I'm at the tail end of a cold, so I didn't want to cough into the microphone. But just for clarification on the crawl space, it's 5'6" right now. How will that become a livable space at 5 feet 6 inches?
Would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, well,
Or bring it
it
back.
requires some digging out
Okay.
of the floor area. I have a brief presentation, and hopefully I can explain how the existing subgrade space relates to the proposed subgrade space and how but there would be a minor amount of digging out. It's not a wholesale digging of a basement, but you're increasing that floor to ceiling height.
Okay. I'll look forward to that in the
Okay.
presentation. Thanks.
Any questions?
Sam asked the one question I had, so I got my answer.
Okay, thank you. Again, a brief presentation tonight, and then we will move this to second reading.
Thank you very much. I will make a brief presentation. For the record, my name is Patrick Raleigh. If I could be entered into the,
Okay, they have promoted you.
I've been promoted. However, I'm not seeing me.
Yeah, it just takes a minute.
Does it take a second? So this is a story of land use. It's a story of community. It's a story of family. It's kind of a story about where Aspen has been and where we maybe want to go. And that kind of prefaces everything that I'm here to say. And we're slightly changing. We saw the staff memo, and it's very clear it's going to be a difficult climb to overcome some of the staff findings. But we think that it's more appropriate maybe to propose a code amendment that will be available to the entire community. And I think we have very good reasons to do that, and I think that would be some positive benefits to the community to ensure that, you know, families can stay here and that our community continues to thrive. To start off the meeting tonight, Lisa Guth is here, and she would like to say a few words, so I'd like to turn it over to Lisa, and then we'll go through my presentation.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Lisa Guth. I think you know my husband.
Welcome.
Unlike him, he's like a very confident, comfortable speaker. I'm a little different, so just bear
Make
with
sure
me.
your green light is on and pull it down. There you go.
Okay. Bear with me, please. Number one, to answer that question, we love our house. I would die in my house. I've been here for 20 years. My kids all came home from the hospital in that house. We're not looking to resell at all. We just want to live comfortably in town. We live with our growing family at 150 North 8th Street. We do understand staff's recommendation and the reasons behind it, but due to the unique zoning and the approval history, which Patrick will talk about, of our property, we have no alternative path to request the additional space our family really needs. Like many local families, we cannot afford to simply purchase a larger home. Our options are to leave altogether, but this Aspen is home for us, to further burden the APSHA system, which we know, is not a great thing, or to move out of the valley, or to come to you and seek approval to expand into an existing crawl space beneath our home. This expansion would have no visual impact, as we mentioned. It has broad neighborhood support, and it would be completed with all the required permits and fees. We're not asking for any exceptions. We understand the intent of the zoning regulation that limits unit size. And while that policy does make sense in many situations, it does not fit this very unique circumstance of our property. It's a family home in a residential neighborhood with an existing subgrade space already there. We happen to share a zone district with some downtown properties while being surrounded by residential neighborhoods where this limitation does not apply to anybody else. We respectfully ask for your consideration of our unique circumstances and for your help in finding a path that allows our family to remain in Aspen and continue contributing to this community that we know and love. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. So I see some of us craning our necks to see the pictures that you have in front of us. Just to orient you, the image on the left is actually the Guth's house, and then the image in the middle is the room or the window below which we would dig out this basement. So you can see that the extent of disturbance would be limited to that area. Oh, come on. There we go. So a little bit of background. This is the Shadow Mountain View Townhomes. It's a 9,000 square foot lot. It is a 3-unit condo. You have the subject property, 831 West Bleecker, and then 833 West Bleecker Avenue, which is the deed restricted unit. And to answer the question, it is a rental unit, and it's currently occupied by a teacher in the school district. In 2012, the addition of the affordable housing unit actually imposed the residential cap on us. So, you know, through the deliverance of an affordable housing, we have this additive burden of a net livable square foot cap. But this is truly a missing middle housing development. This is not a large house that is being developed by people who will occasionally live here. It's also not affordable housing that is, you know, smaller and doesn't really support a family very well broadly. And this is a house that's for members of the community that have children that are living and working here on a daily basis. So the notion of a missing middle is a planning term of kind of the in-between house, and this is really what it is. And I think actually missing middle is something that is very important for the future of Aspen's community. As Lisa has said, this is their family house. This is where they live. Life is uncertain.
Patrick, let's get to the details of the
Okay, thank
proposal
you.
here.
Thank
You
you,
know,
Madam Mayor.
you have second reading for the full presentation.
Okay, but life is uncertain. So we're looking for a way to kind of further enhance the community of Aspen. Here is the overall site. You can see this location. Here it is in context. This is West Bleecker and North 8th Street. You can see the relative background of existing development behind. And going back, so as we were talking about, I think this is most importantly, and we want to put this idea as a code amendment that's not just for the Guths, it's for all the families of Aspen. But staff had said that the unit cap in the residential multifamily zone district.
Wait a second. Are we talking about a code amendment now, and are you withdrawing your application and submitting a code amendment? Or do I need to ask my staff to evaluate what a code amendment across the entire community would do?
Well, we would like to explore a code amendment because
So are you asking to withdraw the application and explore a code amendment?
well, I
to
would
do
like
what
to
you're
hear
seeking?
feedback on first reading about the possibility of a code amendment and how this relates. And we can talk about the merits of this application as well.
Okay,
But
we're here to hear about an application, not to hear about a code amendment. If you're really seeking a code amendment, let's submit that separately and have our staff.
well, the
evaluate.
residential the cap that staff has said was simply to avoid making larger units. But going back to where the cap was put in place, was in 2007 when Jen Phelan came to this council, and there was coming out of a 2006 moratorium, and we were looking at what was going to happen in the residential multifamily zone district. And there were some concerns about single-family housing being taken away and loss of existing housing. So this code amendment came into place. The cap actually is itself in relation to landing of TDRs on a unit. So if you go back into the 2007 meeting minutes, you can see that the cap was, you had a restriction on affordable or of free market new single-family residential, which would take part about 80% of the floor area. If you had allowed TDRs to be landed for floor area, that 80% restriction, which was meant to incentivize multifamily development, would have been diluted. And so staff put this cap on net livable units, largely in relation to the landing of TDRs. We do think that the cap on the net livable units does need to be the target, I think, and looked at and considered to be modified. You know, using a net livable metric for a standalone house or a duplex as we have here doesn't quite make sense because you have subgrade space. And subgrade space, floor area is generally the metric in which we use, and floor area does not count fully subgrade space. So we have a bit of a disconnect between what is existing and how this net livable space cap is going to be used. We think that by placing this restriction on unit size, it does kind of throw the balance of community and resort. It harms the possibility of missing middle housing, and it increases the hurdles for local area residents to stay in their houses. And also, I had to laugh that, yes, there are some crawl spaces that are frequently created for livable spaces, and those are probably likely done illegally. So there's a hole there. But we do want to.
Okay, we are back into a code amendment now.
Okay, well, let me explain.
This is supposed to be first reading on a single application that's in front of us. And we have other audience members waiting for their issues as well. Are we staying on the application and to stick to the application we're hearing?
Let's stick to the application, and then we can come back at second, and maybe you can give staff some direction on a possible look at the code. But you can see this is the floor area, or the floor plan of the subgrade space. On the right is the existing, the blue shaded is what is proposed. As I pointed out, we would be digging out under that window for that subgrade space. Here's the images of the crawl space that we were talking about. So, I don't know the exact height, but it's somewhat finished, but does need to have some space, some of the floor dug out to make this more habitable. But it's immediately adjacent, as you can see, to the existing subgrade space. We can come back to this later. I think that the intent of ordinance number 9 was to focus development into already developed areas. That's what we want to do by finishing out this basement. We want to retain existing units. That's what we want to do by finishing out this basement so the Guths can stay there. Let's make some improvements that don't have impacts to neighbors. This is a fully subgrade, no windows. It's a very minor modification that would be made and could be quickly handled. And the neighbors have understood this and provided their support. This preserves the housing opportunities for locals. We need to squeeze as much as we can in Aspen to ensure that we have the locals that are living in our community. So here's an opportunity to help with that.
Are you saying this would be deed restricted in some sort of form in the future to assure that it would be local housing?
No, but this is for the missing middle, as I said. It's not affordable housing. It's not the large
And what
lot.
price range is the missing middle in your mind in Aspen?
It is on the free market, so it would be free market, but it's also limited by the size and configuration, and let the market handle that. But we are not proposing affordable housing.
Okay, so middle is really upper income when you're
Well,
talking
that's the
for
Aspen.
market.
That's the Aspen in which
Well,
you have.
that's what I'm kind of asking. Yeah.
Well, that's what the Aspen that has been created by the code. A few things. This is a very targeted request. We don't think that many people will come in. We do want to make it available to all. Really, the creation of the affordable housing was part and parcel of this unit becoming subject, or this development being subject to the unit cap. So, that continues. We are supporting this affordable housing unit by further developing the Guths unit. Looking at some of the demographic information, I think this is food for thought. If you look at total number of families in Aspen, Basalt, and Carbondale, Aspen is well below
Is this
what Basalt
specific
and
to the
Carbondale.
application?
This is specific, yes. This is about preservation of community and support of families. You can see that households with children is very low. We don't have very many children. That's what is happening to our school districts. You can see further demographic information. Here's some recent news articles late last year where the school district was talking about their declining numbers. And they said that the biggest issue is the price, the cost of living in Aspen. So we're trying to modify that overall arc and look at developing housing that we have existing and allowing people to stay here. And I think the most important thing is the declining Aspen Elementary School numbers. That's the feeders of what's going in. So that's really kind of a canary in the coal mine for the city. As I just said, the creation of the affordable, this unit supported the affordable housing. And I think an interesting thing to note that if we excluded subgrade net livable space, this unit would actually be very close to being compliant with the unit caps. And that's really the crux, is to differentiate subgrade net livable space with above grade net livable space. Here is the plan as it was originally conceived back in 2012. You can see it's the exact same footprint. This is what is being proposed. There's the area of expansion. And this is not development for development's sake. It's not an ostentatious display. This is the creation of laundry space. It's the creation of additional storage space. And it's a rec play area for children to play in, and a small area of mechanical in the corner. Again, this is the expansion. This is what would be viewed, very minimal impacts to the neighbors. And we have the numerous letters of support from families and neighbors who said this is a great idea, this is what we need to do. They recall what Aspen used to be like with families and kids running around. Let's get back to that. And we can talk about this a little bit more at second when we can delve into a greater public comment. But it also should be pointed out that at Planning and Zoning, we did not have one negative commenter come out to say that this was a bad idea. So it's a common sense expansion. I think some zoning requirements can be refined to be more supportive. It's not impactful space that would be created. It's fully subgrade. It won't increase the traffic. It won't increase the demands of services. And it's not an ostentatious display of development. This is really, truly for the family. But it will encourage the creation of affordable housing units and with other duplex properties. There may be people that are sitting there that says, well, you know, I would do this, but if I added another unit to my duplex, then I become subject to this cap. So changing the parameters of the cap may be a positive thing for additional affordable housing throughout the town, where I think it's really appropriate. We would reduce an existing nonconformity by excluding the subgrade net livable space. A code amendment would be available to all. I think that's a key thing that we want to make a point, that this is not just about the Guths, it's not about one family, it's about a community. And let's help keep Aspen a living, evolving, and healthy community. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we'll come back.
Are there specific questions from the board at this time?
I'll ask one more.
Please.
Kind of for second reading, but maybe I just missed this in the packet, but I presume the reason to grant this, as we do for like P and Z back in the day, would be hardship, the interpretation that you're going through some sort of hardship. So I would ask that if I'm wrong or what the criteria is for approval or denial of this be very plainly said, and that you very plainly address that criteria so that we stay within that criteria.
Absolutely.
And talk about a code amendment at a potentially different time. But if it is hardship, and Dan, you can speak to what the criteria is, please really directly address that for second reading.
Thank you.
No, the full analysis of the criteria is in the packet. So yeah, it's absolutely about the criteria for variance. One of that is that, yeah, that there's a hardship and that they don't have reasonable
I
use
think
of the
he wants a
property.
little more at the next meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll go through all the criteria
Great.
in full.
Any other questions? I'm wondering, Ben, if for the next packet, you could also include the size of the deed-restricted affordable bedrooms, the units that we create if a 4-bedroom is created or a 3-bedroom is created. You know, APSHO should have some of the sizes that have been allowed and have been created in the past. I'm pretty sure that the affordable housing units, the 3 bedrooms up there behind the ambulance barn, were 1,500 square feet for 3-bedroom units.
Are you, just for clarity, so that we're giving the right information, are you just asking about APSHA's kind of standard unit sizes for?
Yes, I'm kind of wondering this question of hardship for a family. You know, it sounds like 1,500 square feet shouldn't be the size we're building for Aspen units. They should be 2,000 or 3,000 feet so that a family can live in them. I'm just kind of trying to understand what is the variation of what do we consider a good home for people that we currently can create in our housing program. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13, series of 2026, 150 North 8th Street on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Nicole, oh, wait a second, I did that wrong. I made the
motion
wrong,
to
I
read.
asked for the wrong motion. That was my mistake. Is there a motion to read ordinance number 13, series of 2026, 150 North 8th Street?
So moved.
Second.
I can always tell the look on their face when I made the wrong motion. Okay, so.
Counselor
motion-
Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. And now is there a motion to move to second reading ordinance number 13, series of 2026, 150 North 8th Street?
Mayor, I would ask that the clerk be allowed to read the ordinance
Oh.
before we get to the second. I'm sorry.
I am sorry, too. My greatest apologies here.
Ordinance number 13, series of 2026, an ordinance of the Aspen City Council approving a floor area variance, major subdivision amendment, and amendment to a city council ordinance at the property commonly known as 150 North 8th Street, legally described as Unit 150 Shadow Mountain View Townhome Condominiums, according to and subject to the condominium declaration of Shadow Mountain View Townhomes Condominiums, recorded November 25th, 2015, as reception number 625122, First Amendment, recorded September 10th, 2018, as reception number 650231, and the condominium map for Shadow Mountain View Townhome Condominiums filed for record November 25th, 2015, in Plat Book 112 at page 93, City of Aspen, County of Paepcke, State of Colorado.
Thank you, Nicole. That was a mouthful. Now, and I apologize again, I would accept a motion to move ordinance 13, series of 2026, 150 North 8th Street to second reading.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move this to second reading.
Actually, I just want to clarify. I think, Mayor, what you're actually moving, or what you're requesting a motion on, is to approve at first reading, which is required under the charter, that there
Okay.
be an approval
using the wrong
of the
language.
form of ordinance number 13 at first reading. And so I would ask that that be the motion that's presented.
To approve on first reading.
Correct.
Okay. And so we strike that last motion. It is void. Is there a motion to approve on first reading ordinance 13, series of 2026, 150 North 8th Street, and move to second reading?
So moved.
Okay, there we go.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded correctly.
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank
Mayor, if I may, we are having some broadcast issues with our Zoom, so with your permission, I'd ask if we could maybe pause the meeting for 5 minutes and work with Grassroots to resolve that issue.
Okay, we will take a 5-minute break so we can work on the audio-visual
Thank
Zoom
you.
system. Thank you. Well, we're back. It's the June 9th regular city council meeting, and the next thing on our agenda is Ordinance 12, series of 2026, the West Smuggler Street to establish one TDR.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I've got this item as well. Let me pull up the presentation.
Did you want any of the applicants up with you or anything? If I just see him in the audience.
Kim Raymond is here on behalf of the property
If you'd like to
owner.
come up,
Come on
feel
up, Kim.
free.
I don't have a presentation. I didn't think we could have one on first reading.
In general, not.
It ebbs and flows. Let me share, or let me try this here. All right, there we go. So we are here tonight for first reading for a potential TDR, transferable development rights certificate for 406 West Smuggler. Orienting you here is an aerial of the property on Smuggler between North 3rd and North 4th. Obviously, it's a historic home. Back earlier this year, the Historic Preservation Commission did approve a project here with Resolution 3, Series of 2026. That was back in February. And the project, the scope is to remove some non-historic additions, restore the architectural details of the historic home. It approved a detached addition, essentially a second unit, to be behind the property along with subgrade expansion and a garage. It also approved a relocation so that the home can be lifted and temporarily moved to the side of the site while they do the excavation and then move it back. And then there were benefits associated with it, a setback variation, and then the TDR certificate that only council can approve. So the commission considered it and recommended approval. I just wanted to give you a shot of the project. This is the historic cabin restored in the front, and then the additional second unit behind it. This came to council for call-up, by the way, and council said, okay, no problem. Here's the math on the proposal. So overall, they can have up to 3,600 square feet. The proposed floor area is 3,177. So then you've got 423 square feet remaining. The TDR certificate is at increments of 250 square feet. So if approved, it would leave 173 square feet on the property. And so tonight, this is the first reading. We will go through all the criteria at second reading. You do have a recommendation of approval from the Historic Preservation Commission. Staff is recommending tonight that you go ahead and read Ordinance 12 for the first time and then set a public hearing for June 23rd, 2026. And then, yeah, Kim is here as well if you have questions about the project or the application.
Thank you. Are there any questions to staff on this item?
Not very clear memo, thanks.
No. And we do have the applicant here, a representative of the applicant, if there are any questions for her at this time. And there are none. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Is there a motion to read ordinance number 12, series of 2026, 406 West Smuggler Street, establish one TDR?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Nicole, will you read the ordinance?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes.
Ordinance number 12, series of 2026, an ordinance of the City of Aspen City Council approving the establishment of transferable development rights certificate for the property located at 406 West Smuggler Street, legally described as lots P and Q, Block 33, City and Townside of Aspen, and lots 16 and 17, Block 33, Hallam's addition to the City and Townside of Aspen, County of Pickens, State of Colorado.
I'll move to approve Ordinance 12, Series of 26 on first reading.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded. Thank you. And will you call the roll on that, Nicole?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so
Kim.
much. And thank you for allowing us to switch the agenda around on you. We now will move to our public hearings. This is ordinance number 9, series of 2026, 320 West Main Street, the planned unit development project review, conditional use review, growth management quota system review, transportation and parking management review.
Thank you. I'm Jillian White, the City's Historic Preservation Officer. I just wanted to come up to introduce the project and let you know that the applicant will be presenting first, followed by the staff's presentation for the second reading. So Sarah with Ben and Adams will be making that presentation.
Okay, thank you. Note for the record that we did have a site visit on Monday the 1st at 3:30, and the full council was in attendance.
Just 1 second while I pull up my presentation. This is the scariest part. Okay. All right, I am Sarah Adams with Ben and Adams. Thank you for having us. I have Scott Kay here, who is the property owner, and he's going to start the presentation.
All right, great. Thank you, Sarah. Good evening.
Hold on. Okay.
Am I set?
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Richard, City Council. My name is Scott Kay. Thank you for the opportunity to share my vision for the future of the Smith-Elijah House. My preservation work began at age 26 when I bought an abandoned property in Charleston. For the last 15 years, I've restored historic properties, resulting in numerous Carolopolis Awards, which is given out by the Preservation Society of Charleston, recognizing outstanding achievements in restorations. I'm a Colorado native and was spending time in Aspen for almost 10 years. I purchased the Smith-Elijah House in 2021 with the goal of preservation. What I did not expect was how deeply I would appreciate the history of this home and the families who cared for it. One of the greatest privileges is beginning to know the members of the Elijah family and having their full support for this vision. Ingrid Elijah, who grew up in the house, shared stories about her mother and how there was always a fresh pot of coffee on the stove and the front door was always open for friends. My hope is that the Smith-Elijah House can once again be a place that welcomes people in. This proposal has never been about maximizing profit. If it were, we would be pursuing a very different project. Instead, environmental sustainability and the long-term stewardship of this grand landmark has guided every decision we have made. I'm grateful for the time, care, and thoughtful consideration that the city staff and various departments and city council have devoted to this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So I know Scott, we're really excited to present this project to you to convert 320 West Main to a lodge. Aspen is known for its layers of history, from silver mining to the quiet years to skiing, of course, and then connecting it all through the Aspen idea. I think we can all agree that our small town is defined by its unique characters, its architectural history, and creative expression. The conversion of 320 to a small lodge with designated historic interiors connects the intangible with the tangible. The stories of Aspen's mining history, the Elijah family, and all of their contributions really come alive when you can be in this space and you can experience the interior of the building. The neighborhood, so that's the history part of it. The neighborhood will be protected through a binding management agreement that we'll talk about that's unique to a lodge use. It's not associated with other uses, as you know, not associated with commercial or anything like that. So we are happy to kind of walk you through the project. My presentation is about 10 minutes, so
Okay.
I'll be thorough and concise.
Thank you.
You're welcome. HVC reviewed the project in January. There was a recommendation to council in favor of the 6-room lodge and interior preservation. If council approves the project, then HPC has a final hearing where they will hopefully adopt a preservation plan for the interior elements. As I mentioned at the site visit, and as you probably already know, Aspen does not have a program for historic interiors. We've never had a program to designate interiors historic. It's always been associated with a plan development with a site-specific approval. Scott selected the most complicated review path for this property. To pursue 6 keys is extremely complicated. Proposing 10 keys, which would require gutting the interior of the building, is a much quicker review process. We wouldn't be sitting before you. We wouldn't be, talking about a management plan and things like that. He definitely picked a more challenging, but I think better for the community project with 6 keys. So just a little quick background. The Smith-Elijah house refers to the 2 prominent families that occupied the house. Eben Smith, he was the original owner in 1886. He was a prominent miner. He managed the Franklin mine and the Deep Shaft mine. The Elijah family is more well-known in Aspen. Lawrence and Svea Elijah purchased the home in 1946. Lawrence, his father Mansur, and Lawrence's sons have a long history of owning and managing the Hotel Jerome and doing just a ton of community projects and community contributions. Lawrence and Svea were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1994. Converting their family home to a lodge really connects their story and also preserves their legacy in a really unique way. You can see them here. This is actually Ingrid's 71st birthday cake, which looks kind of amazing. I think the kid's like that kid really wants it. So a little bit of background on the property. The property was obviously originally a residence until about 1989. The use was changed at that time to an office. And then between 1989 and 2004, the use flip-flopped between office and residence multiple times. In 2002, there was a lot split approved, and you can see this very light plat that approved the lot split. It created 2 4,500 square foot lots and essentially added a lot line between the main house, which is here, and the carriage house on the right. When the lot split was approved, there were a lot of concerns on City Council about a fence going up between the carriage house and the main house, and wanting to maintain that visual connection between the 2 resources, but recognizing that a lot split was requested. And so they added a condition to the plat that you can see here. It's in your application a lot larger, that prevents any sort of fence going between the 2 properties or any sort of visual barrier to maintain that connection. The lot split plat, and I'm sure staff will talk about this, also waived any required parking. We're still meeting the parking requirement, but it's not something that we would have to do, but it's important anyway. HPC reviewed just some minor site plan changes. We talked about these on the site visit a little bit, and I'll go through them pretty quickly. This is existing conditions that you saw today or last week. What was approved by HPC was a proposal to organize the trash, recycle, and compost and have it enclosed with a fence and on property. Right now, it kind of migrates around, so it'll have a designated location. Here's the transformer that remains. We have our 2 parking spaces, and one of which is an ADA space. When Alex and Wendy, the owners of the carriage house, raised concerns about guests using their parking space, walking on their private property, we met with Alex on site, probably in the fall of last year, and amended the proposal to move the existing sandstone walkway to the west of the property here to direct guests away from the carriage house. We're also proposing a fence with a gate and signage across where the parking is to, again, direct guests from the alley to the walkway. HPC also reviewed ADA access with a lift on the rear porch with the most minimal intrusion to historic fabric as possible. So I'm going to go into the boutique lodge floor plans a little bit. So as you know, at this point, we're proposing 6 keys. We didn't go into the lower level on the site visit. It's maybe 6 feet high. I'm fine in there, but anyway, it's an existing space. It's going to be back of house, laundry, storage. There's some mechanical, no change really proposed down here. And then on the main level, we have our, main entry where we all met to start the site visit. The primary entry point is through the foyer where you have the historic stair, your reception area. You can see all the historic pocket doors are shown on the floor plans. There's a proposal to have a kitchen here. Scott plans to run this like a bed and breakfast where there'll be a light breakfast provided for guests, and then, kind of like an après-ski wine and cheese or après-hike type of thing. This isn't a commercial kitchen. It's not open to the public, none of that. I mean, you can tell it's pretty small. And then there's the 2 common parlors that you saw on the site visit. Those remain open as a lodge amenity. At the rear is the ADA key with the full bathroom. The land use code requires all lodge keys to have a full bathroom attached. And so I'll show you on the next level. We've had to make just a few minor adjustments. Whoops. Hey. Okay. Adding some walls in gray to accommodate bathrooms to meet the city's requirement for a full bathroom for each lodge key. So on the second floor, we have 4 keys. And then on the top floor, we have 1 key. We looked at trying to fit 2 keys up there. With the egress, there's a very precarious fire escape, and the requirement for a bathroom, we really just couldn't make it work to add another key up there. As you can see in the chart, there's a range of lodge sizes, which is one of the goals of not just the code and the boutique lodge, but also the Aspen Area Community Plan. Here are some historic images, more for the public since you were in the space already. The elements that we'll be presenting, hopefully to HPC at final review to permanently preserve. So the interior designation would again be tied to the property. The management plan, the approval would be tied to the property, not to Scott.
Right.
And here's some more images. Well, there's like a delay. I see it there. I'll keep going. Uh-oh.
Yeah, one's moving, one's not.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone online can see what I'm doing and hear me.
Do you see what's happening? One screen's moving.
There it goes.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Now it caught up.
Are we
Okay.
still good? Okay, because I know there's people listening in.
Yeah.
So we really find that this application is an opportunity to preserve the interior of a residence in Aspen. We have 2 designated interiors in town. We have the J Bar and portions of the Hotel Jerome lobby, like the tile floor, things like that. And then we have the Red Onion Bar, and that's it. We have bars and a lobby. So I think this would really, add to the historic preservation program in a really important way to see how people lived, actually resided in town. So the boutique lodge has specific criteria. I think this is your first boutique lodge application ever. The criteria really look at how the use fits into the neighborhood. This is a mixed-use zone district. The criteria also look at if there are community benefits, if what we're proposing adds to the diversity of the lodge offerings in town. And it also requires commitments to prevent the lodge from use as a single-family home. That's really why it's a conditional use, is to make sure we aren't creating single-family homes that are disguised as lodges. So you can see the uses here on the map. Get my cursor going. So in blue is 320. To the right in the carriage house, there's a license for a short-term rental permit. The little cabin, it's called like the McDonald's cabin, but the little cabin on the corner, it also has a license for a short-term rental permit. We have the lodges that you all know on Main Street. Aspen Mountain Lodge here. We have commercial offices across the street, multifamily residential, commercial on the corner where Forum Phi's offices are now in that historic structure, affordable housing next to Forum Phi on the right. sorry, my cursor's
And your SR code is single resident?
SR is short-term rental. So it's a single-family home with a short-term rental permit.
Okay. both
So I
of
think
those.
it's important to distinguish that it has a short-term rental
Yeah.
permit, just,
Yeah, no, I was just, hadn't seen the code SR before.
I made it up. And R
you.
is religious. It was,
Okay,
trying to fit
got
it
it,
in my
got it.
bubbles. And then there's two bus stops. There's VI.C over at the Boomerang, the Boomerang Lodge. We needed to put together a transportation plan, but we have 4,500 square feet and a huge historic landmark. So we reached out to the Transportation Department, who directed us to VI.C. And so we have a commitment to provide a donation to VI.C since we really can't do much on the property. And so that's incorporated into the proposal. As I said, the location's proximate to transportation. There's amenities on the main level in the historic rooms, which is a really unique experience. Scott met with the Aspen Historical Society, and I know that they provided a letter discussing they can't really support the project, but talking about how they would envision using the property in concert with the lodge. And Scott also is volunteering to enter into a binding and enforceable management plan to address all the neighbor concerns. So it was really important to Scott that throughout this process, we communicate with all the neighbors and are available to answer any questions at any time, hear any concern, and try to accommodate that. Over a year ago, Scott met individually with his immediate neighbors to explain his plans for the property and to gain feedback. This is before we submitted the application. The feedback at that time was positive. I also met individually with Alex Young on site to talk about the walkway relocation. And I discussed the project with the owner of the Copper Horse, who called me after he got a public notice for HPC. I don't know how many tours you've done of the property at this point.
At least a dozen.
At least a dozen. So really just trying to talk to people and help them understand what's being proposed. While it wasn't required by the code, we organized a neighborhood Zoom meeting to present the project, to present the management plan to the neighborhood. We sent the invite information to join the meeting to all owners within 300 feet. It was a Zoom meeting. We know Alex and Wendy are primarily in London, and so we just wanted to make sure everyone was included. Ruben Schwartz, the general manager of the Aspen Mountain Lodge, which is directly across Main Street, joined along with Jillian and Sophie. From the city. And it was a really great meeting. It ended with Ruben scheduling a tour of the property.
He did. He walked through.
He walked through.
We spent
Great.
a good hour there.
Yeah, so it was a positive meeting. It's a good reminder to do those even if you don't have to. When we learned of the neighbors' concerns at the HPC hearing, Scott voluntarily created a management plan for the lodge to directly address their concerns, including guest circulation, parking, alley activity. I want to point out, and Scott is okay with me mentioning this, that Ben Rose's letter lists a lot of these concerns that we're talking about, but also raised the question about Scott listing the property for sale in February. And we just want to be clear, he was going through a divorce. He was required to list the property as terms of the divorce. But he loves this property. He was able to sell a different property in Charleston to retain ownership. So we just kind of wanted to put that out there because I think it's important. Moving on to the management plan. As I said, this is binding on the property regardless of ownership. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it. Happy to answer questions. I'm not going to go through every point. It's somewhat long. But you can see the goals are to protect the adjacent properties, manage alley functions, reduce vehicle trips, and ensure respectful guest behavior. The previous owner ran an illegal short-term rental that was not managed properly. Scott admittedly has made a few bad decisions, allowing a few people to stay at the house this winter. So we understand the neighbor's position on the impacts of a short-term rental. However, a lodge use is entirely different. There's on-site staff. The management plan intends to address all of these concerns and to prevent any negative impacts. Other uses like a bar, like I said, don't require a management plan. Oops. We are here to talk about growth management. Rather than get an approval, hopefully get an approval for housing credits, knowing there's no credits on the market, We want to be upfront and transparent and request cash in lieu now instead of coming in after you've approved the project. It seems a little disingenuous. There's no credits on the market. Scott explored potential buy-down units, and we couldn't find anything that would be acceptable. So we are asking for cash in lieu. We're required to mitigate for all of the lodge keys. You don't get a credit for commercial. The commercial space that's there, there's no credit. So we are requesting cash in lieu. We looked at fitting the units on site, but that resulted in a reduction in lodge keys, changes to the historic resource, and really just went against everything we're trying to do with preserving the interior. Wrapping it up, I included this in the application, so I won't dwell on it. We did look at the Aspen Area Community Plan as far as lodging goes to confirm that this is in compliance with providing a balanced inventory, protecting small town heritage. So just in conclusion, the immediate neighbors are concerned about creating a precedent approving a 6-room lodge. I can honestly say that I think I've been in most of the historic homes in town over the past 22 years doing preservation in Aspen, and this is likely the most intact private historic house left. The reason to request 6 keys as opposed to 10 keys, which is what the code requires, is to preserve the historic interior and provide a uniquely Aspen experience in one of Aspen's grand historic homes. This project can't be replicated. Meeting the 10-key requirement, I think you all realize at this point, means an entire gut of the building, exterior changes, more square footage. This is about 2,000 square feet under what you could build for a lodge on the property, and much greater neighborhood impact. I think the precedent this project actually sets is preserving Aspen's history inside and out, and bringing back at least one small, quaint bed and breakfast type lodge to town. I mean, look at this sign, and I think the Hotel Jerome's kind of the only one that's left. Historic preservation engages the past with the present, and what better way to honor Elijah's legacy in Aspen's history than through interior designation and the creation of a small lodge. So thank you. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
T Lazy 7's still there.
Oh, yeah. There you go, too. All right.
Okay. Council members, do we have any questions? No? And then
I'd like to see staff and
staff's
public comment
presentation now?
first before questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just wondering.
Great.
Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Staff's presentation now?
I can't, I'm trying to Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Sophie Varga, Zoning Administrator.
And I'm Jillian White, the city's Historic Preservation Officer. Before you tonight, we have a second reading of Ordinance 9, Series of 2026, regarding a proposed planned development at 320 West Main Street. The subject site is an individually designated historic property that's also located within the Main Street Historic District. The property is currently approved with a commercial use, and the applicant is requesting to change that to a boutique lodge. The request includes a reduction to the required number of lodging rooms from the minimum 10 rooms to 6 rooms. The reduction will better preserve the historic resource, as 6 rooms could operate within the existing building footprint with minimal alterations to the interior layout. This would allow for the preservation of historically significant interior features. This request requires the creation of a planned development to allow for the reduction of lodge rooms in a boutique lodge. The Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the application at a public hearing on January 14th of this year. During the public hearing, the HPC approved a certificate of appropriateness for minor development and commercial design review. If the boutique lodge use is approved, the HPC included a condition requiring the preservation of historically significant interior features. Additionally, the HPC provided positive recommendations on plan development review and growth management quota system review, including recommending approval of GMQS allotments and change in use. The HPC took no formal stance on the method of affordable housing mitigation. We have received public comment from a number of parties. Comments were included in the packet, and those received after packet upload were provided via email to City Council. The supportive letters reiterate that the community values the interior preservation of this historic resource and acknowledge the rare opportunity to preserve the interior of this intact historic resource. Public comments also included positive experiences regarding the owner's other adaptive reuse projects involving historic resources. The public comments received in opposition note parking and alley access concerns, alleged past use as a short-term rental, trespassing, nuisance, noise, and the reduction in keys. As noted in the staff report and included in the packet, the applicant has proposed a management plan to address the concerns regarding the proposed use.
Sorry. Establishing a new plan development requires 3 steps. The first step is project review before the Historic Preservation Commission for recommendation. The second step is project review before City Council for decision. That's tonight. And the final step is detailed review before the Historic Preservation Commission for decision. This application requires additional reviews associated with the proposed plan development, including conditional use review, growth management quota system review, and transportation and parking management review. The boutique lodge use and related provisions were created in 2017 to ensure that small lodges functioned as actual lodges and not free market residences. Part of the 2017 code updates included tightening occupancy and operational standards for lodges and strengthening and expanding the lodge auditing standards. Rather than removing the ability to establish small lodges, the boutique lodge use was created to reflect and maintain Aspen's history of small lodges. The reason the boutique lodge use was created as a conditional use rather than a permitted use was to allow for a heightened review to ensure that the boutique lodge would function as a lodge and not as a residence. The boutique lodge standards specifically include a path to reduce the number of keys in order to provide flexibility when there are site constraints or other factors. Staff believe that the requested key reduction is appropriate at 320 West Main Street to ensure the successful operation of the lodge while maintaining the interior and exterior historic structure and features. Plan developments are a tool within Aspen's land use code to allow for site-specific flexibility related to dimensional or use provisions in the code. In this case, the applicant is requesting a plan development to allow for 6 keys in the proposed lodge. The plan development is not being utilized for any reason other than that reduction in keys. Normally, plan developments are reserved for larger projects, but they can also be used for smaller projects if the community development director determines that there is a community benefit in doing so. The desire to preserve the interior integrity of this historically significant and very intact resource provides that justification.
While the exterior of a building may be its most prominent visible aspect or its public face, its interior can be even more important in conveying the building's history and development over time. Although the City of Aspen does not currently require interior preservation, interior spaces often provide better examples of technical skill and architectural excellence. The voluntary preservation of significant interior elements ensures the historic integrity of the interior is maintained, including the excellent workmanship, the historic materials, and the property's overall expression of its period of significance. Properties within the city that have interior elements designated include the Red Onion and Hotel Jerome, as noted by the applicant. Given the limited number of interiors that have preservation requirements within the city, it is important to preserve historically significant interior elements whenever possible. The interior elements at 320 West Main Street represent a residential interior from Aspen's Victorian era, something that we currently lack within our existing historic designations. This proposal is supported through the Aspen Area Community Plan, as the historic preservation policies speak to raising public appreciation for the eras of Aspen's history and notes the importance of preserving exceptional character-defining interiors. Per the AACP, preserving the historic built environment is vital to our culture. We are all stewards of our history, and we must consider what we hope to pass on to future generations. Staff recommend council adopt the ordinance on second reading, and the proposed motion is before you on this screen. As discussed in the staff report, council may have a desire to be more specific related to lodge audits to help ensure that the proposed boutique lodge functions as intended over time. If council is interested, a condition regarding lodge audit timing could be added, and we have provided an example of that. And we're available for any questions.
Thank you. Council members, do we have any questions now, or we can after public comment as well? So, nothing now? Great. Well, let's move to open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation and your work on this. I know we have a lot of faces in the room I haven't seen before, so I imagine we have a lot of public comment. In general, you have 3 minutes to make your points, and just please identify yourself for the public record. So who would like to speak first? Sir, come on up. If you'll hand them to the clerk, she can pass them out for you.
Thank you. I have one copy for you.
And one for her, yes.
Thank you, Mayor Richards and members of council. I'm Ben Rose, and I represent several neighbors of 320 West Main who oppose this project. You'll hear from the neighbors about the real day-to-day impacts of this proposal. Those issues matter deeply, but the issue I want to address in my brief time is narrow, which is that rules matter. And in Aspen, they do more than matter. They form a public trust. I'm not here to tell you that preservation does not also matter. It does. The Smith-Alicia House matters. Aspen's historic buildings are part of what makes this town worth protecting. But the law matters too. Predictability matters. And preservation cannot become a license to gut the city code. So let's start with the city code and the 2017 ordinance that created the Boutique Lodge. I included this record in my written letter, but I'm also passing out the key pages tonight highlighted. In 2017, after a moratorium, after staff work, after public outreach, boutique lodges were created. As you can see in the debate, council expressly rejected 6 keys and adopted 10 because they were focused on a specific danger: lodges in name only. Now, you'll see in the highlighted record that the council members were very clear. They stated so this makes it so that we're not ever going to have less than 10, and staff says yes. It was a very, very clear concern. And in fact, staff confirmed this in the report. As they stated, the boutique lodge use was created because people were trying to create free market residence under the facade of lodge and districts where new free market residences were prohibited. That is not my phrase. That is staff's phrase. And the risk here is not theoretical. I appreciate what Scott said about the reason for him listing his property. And I believe in his sincerity, but as we can see, for the reason he listed his property, life does happen, and life might happen again. And we've seen this before with the Gorsuch incident, where a project story is told, an entitlement is granted, and then the entitlement is sold. I'm not saying that will happen here, but life does happen, and this property has already been listed. Add to that the boutique lodge owner use rule. A future owner could occupy this property up to 90 days a year. I want to say this again. Under the boutique lodge rule, a future owner could occupy this property as their second home up to 90 days a year, and then rent the rest through the lodge system outside the ordinary residential short-term framework. So in practical terms, this could convert a commercial property into a super residential asset, better than your average house. Staff says the management plan and audits will help, but respectfully, they're not. The proposed audit schedule of 1 year, then 6 years, then every 10 years, starting in year 16, is not enforcement. Briefly, to finish, what I want to say briefly, which is very important, is that staff misunderstands the ordinance as well. The 2017 ordinance was very, very clear and not—
Your time is up. I have to be fair to everyone.
Understood.
Your time is up too. Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak? I see one hand in the very far back. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor Richards and members of City Council. My name is Allison Ford, and I'm a resident of Aspen's West End, just a couple of blocks north of the property. I'm here tonight to express my strong support for the land use application for 320 West Main Street submitted by Scott. As Sarah discussed, this Queen Anne home has anchored Main Street since 1889, and it was part of Aspen's early skiing story. Under the Elijah family in the 40s, it became more than a residence, welcoming the Roaring Fork Winter Sports Club pioneers and extending hospitality to communities like the 10th Mountain Division. Returning the property to a small 6-key boutique lodge would continue that legacy in the most authentic way possible. It revives intimate, world-class hospitality rather than leaving the house as a closed-door office space. And bringing a small boutique lodge back to Aspen is the most contextually appropriate and vibrant use for this landmark property. My understanding is that in the 60s and 70s, Aspen had upwards of 30 bed and breakfast homes, and we now have 1 to 2, depending on the definition. So I outlined in my letter the ways in which Mr. K's application demonstrated a commitment to historic preservation, so I won't reiterate what Sarah already covered. But taken together, again, as a neighbor, Main Street's historic streetscape character would remain untouched. And I want to add on a personal note that Mr. K has an impeccable record of stewardship on sensitive historic projects, many of which I've had the opportunity to visit personally. Having known Mr. K professionally for quite some time, I've seen firsthand his ability to balance vision with neighborhood sensitivity and a deep respect for shared history. I also witnessed firsthand the personal matter regarding the sale listing that Sarah mentioned earlier. So just to conclude, I can't think of anyone better suited to bring life to this history honoring project, and truly believe that Scott will protect what makes Aspen special. I believe his trustworthiness and reputation are welcome in the West End. Mayor Richards, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, members of City Council, for your service to Aspen.
Thank you. You kept that well timed. Appreciate that. I do see some hands online. We're going to take a few more calls in the comments in the room first, and then we will come to you online. I do see you. Thank you so much. Ma'am, right up there. I don't know everyone's name.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aislinn Ryan. I did write my own personal letter of support for Scott K's project as a West End property owner, but tonight I'm actually here to read 2 letters that were submitted from descendants of the Elijah family. The first one is from Matthew Elijah, whose grandparents owned the house previously. I recently learned of the application to change Aspen city codes to allow 320 Main Street, the Smith Elijah House, to become a boutique lodge, and I am in support. As an heir to the Lawrence and Svea Elijah, who owned this home until the early 1980s and were an integral part of Aspen history, including ownership of the Jerome Hotel, I see a unique opportunity to ensure that this historic home is preserved and used in a fashion that will allow others an appreciation of this house that I had as a child. I, along with my parents, Lowell and Irene, and my 6 siblings, spent many vacations in Aspen and stayed in the house with my grandmother, Svea, and Aunt Ingrid. We all share deeply fond memories of our time there. Having followed the home's transition over the decades, I have witnessed subsequent alterations that have compromised its original character. Based on my understanding of the current renovation proposal, this boutique hotel concept will actively preserve the home's historic integrity. It promises to restore original elements, including the exterior paint scheme reminiscent of its heyday and the prominent stained glass windows I remember so vividly as a boy. Converting the property into standard commercial spaces such as offices or retail shops risks gutting the interior and permanently erasing its historic personality. For an Aspen that has already lost so much of its iconic Victorian homes, such an outcome would be an immeasurable loss. I respectfully ask the Commission and the City Council to approve the zoning change, ensuring that the Smith Elijah House at 320 Main remains a beautifully restored Aspen jewel for generations to come. The second one is quite short, from another grandchild, Arne. And he just says, "This beautiful home was a grand part of my young and early adult life. It represents Grandma to me and all the fond memories of her and the house. Preserving its beauty and the rightful place in the history of Aspen architecture is a noble intention in which the Elisha family supports."
Thank you. Thank you very much. Additional public comment in the room. Sir? We'll come to you, Bill, next.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Commission, council members. My name is Greg Hammer, and I'm a proud resident of Aspen at 1039 East Cooper. As a sustainability professional and a lead green building educator, I often like to say that the greenest building of all is the building that already exists. I'm here to speak in support of the plans for the Smith-Elijah House at 320 West Main by owner Scott Kay, whose passion and life work is historic preservation. I was first drawn to this lovely city 15 years ago by the Aspen Institute. And since then, I've fallen deeper in love with Aspen as I continue learning about its history. When I learned of the plans for the historic Smith-Elijah home, I realized the implications. I am passionate about adaptive reuse, and I hate waste. So rather than converting this into a commercial entity, like a restaurant, a group of offices, et cetera, repurposing this old home carries minimal impact. The minor renovations required to convert this classic home into a lodge will result in far less construction and demolition debris and waste destined for overflowing landfill than would otherwise be undertaken by these minor renovations. So we're comparing a full gut versus minor renovations to turn this lovely property into a small lodge that would accommodate visitors who could enjoy our 10-minute city, complete with pedestrian access to so many of the things that draws people here. Simply, it's the greenest use of this building. The home is perfectly located within close proximity to where many travelers want to be while visiting Aspen, whether it's meetings at the Aspen Center for Physics or the Aspen Institute, which are very close by, or a casual barbecue dinner, or a short walk to Clark's Market, the Hotel Jerome, or Aspen's Core. Everything is a 10-minute walk or less. This means no need for more vehicular traffic, and if visitors need to travel farther, We-Cycle and RAFTA stops are just a few steps away. Simply put, this lodge's location can't be beat for visitors who want pedestrian, bike, or RAFTA access in either direction. But perhaps most importantly, aside from the green features that I mentioned about waste, diversion, and location and transportation, preserving this property as a lodge versus turning it into a commercial property seems far more consistent with the neighborhood and with what so many Aspenites want for Aspen, to hang on to some history and to share it with others.
You have about 20 seconds.
I see 15.
Okay.
That's why I'm thrilled to learn of the lodge's owner's plans, Scott's plans, to open the lodge to the community in association with Aspen Historical Society, so that locals and visitors from around the world will be able to appreciate the features of this beautiful Victorian home and its important connection with Aspen's rich history. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll take Mayor Bill Sterling.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I was somebody once. That's right. I forgot about that.
You always will be.
Mayor and city council members, I lived in the West End for 35 years in a Victorian, and have a great appreciation for them and an understanding for them, and was part of the effort in the 1980s to codify the protection of Victorian buildings throughout Aspen. In 1983, Aspen was losing, on average, a single residential Victorian house almost one a month because there were no historic standards. And so the council created a system to protect and preserve Victorians, and it's ever since stood up for our history and town character. In my view, it's probably the second most picturesque, photographed, and important Victorian mansion in Aspen, second only really maybe to the Sardi House. And the former seller of 320 West Main chose this particular buyer because his family had such extensive experience in preserving Victorians and what many people consider the most protected and beautifully restored Victorians in America, and it's in Charleston, South Carolina. 320 West Main was rarely ever completely filled with offices after it had been changed from residential use to office use. And it was viewed back then in the 80s and early 90s to be better used, like the Sardi House, as a bed and breakfast as a boutique lodge. It'll give our visitors the unique opportunity to experience staying in Aspen in a classic, lovely Victorian mansion within walking distance of all the activities at the Aspen Institute and downtown. It's near all the bus stops. It'll give visitors the chance to understand and enjoy staying in such a noble Victorian building. I think that this new boutique lodge zone is the perfect fit. It would add another lodging element to our existing inventory and one to be savored for its character and its authenticity. I believe it's really in the long-term best interest of our community for you all to adopt this boutique lodge zone and protect this building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you're very timely, too. I know there may be more in the room, but I'm going to take a few from the online, and then we'll come back to the room. So if you would unmute Wendy Sturgis. Wendy, are you available at this time? We're going to unmute you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please just state your name again for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, and thank you to everyone at City Council. This is Wendy Sturgis. My husband and I are the owner of 314 West Main. We've been referred to multiple times on the call. We are proud owners of this house. And I'd like to point out that we convey so much respect and honor for these crown jewels of Aspen. I believe we own one as one of the only carriage houses in Aspen to my awareness. Bill was the realtor who supported our sale as well with our realtor, Chris Flynn. He's very well aware of the challenges that we took over in the house. It was a house that had years of neglect and many bending of rules and regulations that this council may be aware of. We've spent significant amounts of time and money to rectify those challenges that we faced from the prior owners, and including appropriate zoning following the rules of the law. We have taken this great care and respect for the history we deeply respect. We, too, have spent time at the Historical Society researching the history of these amazing houses together. Obviously, we have the baby house. But the key point that Ben has already made, and I will emphasize, that when we bought this house, we had an understanding of the rules and the regulations that this city had approved and how it was zoned. We were very well aware it was zoned for commercial use. What sits in front of this council today, with all of the great arguments that sound incredibly persuasive, but as the owner of this house is the single largest asset that Alex and I own, it is a direct violation of the auspices under which we bought this house. We've already heard that, the reason why we don't want to change the exterior, no one wants to touch this precious exterior, but that does not change the ask in front of this group to ignore a council-passed resolution that now impacts a whole set of people who are not visitors to our amazing community. And I was a visitor for 25 years. I fulfilled my dream since I was 13 years old and the first time I came to Colorado to be a member of this amazing community. And it has exceeded every expectation. But we have expectations when we purchase the biggest assets we own. We've talked about the keys. We've talked about the approval, all of the reasons why. We've heard all of the beautiful stories. And I have had the luxury of being in Scott's house many times, and it is beautiful. But I respectfully have to push back that as we have seen over and over, and Ben has already said, that once an approval is granted, all those commitments can come off the table. And that is the second reason why we're asking this council to consider denying this. They all sound amazing. We've heard Scott and all of the great things that I know that he has done in Charleston, but there's no assurance. And, whatever the situation has been said, life changes. And this has happened many, many times in our community. We deeply, Alex and I, value historic homes. I consider owning. Her nickname is Princess Charlotte. She has a name. I feel that she has a personality. It feels very female to me. It was a carriage. There were horses and sheep and goodness knows what else in there. And we believe that there are appropriate commercial uses. We've heard all the reasons why that will not work, and I would respectfully argue that's not the case. We would ask you to deny this beta based on my two stated concerns. Thank you all for your service. We know these are very difficult decisions, but I think the position is very clear. Thank you all.
Wendy. I will skip down to Brian Tabor, if you will unmute him. Brian, you will have the floor now. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Brian Tauber. I will try to be quick. I am the girls' high school basketball coach and a teacher at Aspen High School. I'm a full-time resident. I purchased my house 3 years ago next month, directly across from the alley of the subject property. I would first like to address Sarah's comments about reaching out to the neighbors, including some meeting. I live there 12 months a year. I think I'm the only one in the immediate proximity that does. I was never contacted. The only time I got a call was from Ben when I submitted comments. It was a pleasant conversation. I never heard from him again. This does not build trust. I'm not as concerned about use per se as I am on the impact on me, my family, my guests, my neighbors. I mean, access, congestion, safety, I assume are paramount in zoning a hotel, and why I assume there are very few located mid-block with no parking or even stopping in the front of the building. Our alley is narrow. It is difficult to navigate. In the winter, so much so that I often cannot access my carport due to the slipperiness of the ground and or the unplowed snow making turns impossible, or when plowed, creating snowbanks that make it even narrower that I have to park on the street. They talk about minimizing adverse impacts. That's imagination versus reality. I've listened to the proposed solutions and what they imagine will resolve these concerns. I'm here to present the reality I've lived for the past 3 years as the subject house had constant residential or short-term rental tenants. First, they imagined that there's 2 parking spots are sufficient. In reality, there's only 1. The other one is handicapped and must be used by a qualified vehicle. I will not even get into the lack of logic of how you limit guests in 6 rooms to only having 1 car when there's no public parking within a half a mile and all street parking is restricted. My reality is that the guests park and have left cars in the middle of the alley, looked at me from the porch, and continued their conversations as if I did not exist. In fact, once someone was seen entering the subject property, left a car in the alley, not in the parking spot, in the winter for several days until it was cited and finally towed. The manager is not on site all of the time, and why should I have to go in looking for a manager when people are parking in the middle of the alley? I don't even want to get into all the services that will be using the alley: housekeeping, additional garbage, lawn service, maintenance. This will become a commercial thoroughfare that creates not only significant inconvenience to us in the alley, but actually safety concerns.
Thank you, Brian.
People live outside. I sympathize, but we live there, and this is not good for the residents nearby. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will come back to the room now, and then I will come back to online. I still see you there, but we're going to take a few more people in the room. Others who would like to make public comment who are here for this, just raise your hand. Come on up.
Does it matter where I sit?
Yeah, either one, as long as there's a green light, and kind of pull the microphone towards you a little bit.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
okay.
Thanks. My name is Melanie Toller. Mayor Richards and city council members, in October, my husband and I will have owned 327 West Bleecker for 16 years. When we came to Aspen, the draw had as much to do with governance in the city as it did with the amenities in the city and the nearby area. Consistently, our real estate agent spoke about building codes and zoning and the reasons for those. And when we looked around Aspen, we saw examples of them, and we said, Aspen walks the talk. They have a plan and they're following it. Before purchasing our property, our agent disclosed the zoning of each of the properties behind us. 320 West Main was zoned commercial office, and at that time it was being legally used as commercial office. It was a combination law and investment practice, and we met one of the owners who quickly alleviated any concerns of disruptions for us. He said that they had a Monday through Friday operation, 9 to 5, their secretary walked to work, and they had very few client visits. For 7 years, we had no issues, no short-term rentals. We were part of a very amiable alley community that knew each other by name. We did favors for each other. We watched out for each other's property. We all got along. When 320 Main sold in 2018, the two subsequent owners started renting by Vrbo, Airbnb, Third Home, to friends, friends of friends, without the required authorizations. While issues were communicated to the owners, they became progressively worse. Livery vehicles idling in the alley for 20 to 30 minutes, cars having to be towed because they block an alley, police dispatched for violations. This is use of city resources. That was all with one key. With 6 keys, possibly 6 cars arriving at all hours, and no full-time management on site, the problems can do nothing but escalate. Members of Aspen City staff have said to us, personally and at meetings, there are lots of other uses for this property, and we would not be considering it if it wasn't historical. Councilman, excuse me, can you tell I'm nervous?
I can, and you're about out of time, so
Okay.
try to wrap it up. We'll give you a few more seconds.
Thanks. Council made a site visit last week, and you saw that the property is not crumbling in disrepair. Exceptions to the code and your laws do not need to be made to keep this historical property preserved for Aspen's history. We respectfully ask that you not change the law and change the land use to a boutique lodge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Additional public comment in the room?
Hi, my name is Barbara Sanders. I've been a homeowner in Aspen for the last 21 years. I live just about a block and a half down the way and I'm here to support my friends, Wendy and Alex, and I understand what's going on for them. I'm a huge supporter of historic properties. I support financially the Aspen Historical Society. My son grew up there, so I'm very passionate about that. But I also feel like people in Aspen, it's important when you live in a community, a residential community that all of a sudden you're not living next door to the hotel, to a hotel. Like I didn't choose to live next door to the Jerome or to the Molly or something like that. That's not something I'm looking for. I'm looking to live in a community with real people who are there. I also can't make money on short-term rentals and things like that because there's rules. So I feel like, some of the things I want to say is that in 2017, council and staff debated this policy openly, and 6 keys was abandoned, so not to abuse. So if you say 6 keys is okay tonight, you're changing the policy. And then how do you say no to 7 keys or 8 or 6, 5, whatever? It was already rejected. So once the floor is lowered by exception, it's no longer a floor, it's a negotiation. So if you want to reverse what you said in 2017, then we ask to reverse it openly, direct staff to draft a code amendment, study the consequences, define the limits, hear from the public, decide whether Aspen wants 6 key lodges, 10 key lodges, 5 key lodges in commercial and mixed use districts. But do not approve the exception first and then ask the policy question later. Not approve tonight by one property exception what they didn't, what Aspen refused to do in public in 2017. So I respectfully ask you to deny this ordinance, at a minimum continue it, and direct staff to bring back a code amendment if council wants to change the 10-key rule. Do not let one worthy preservation goal become the vehicle for undoing a rule that protects the entire city. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Additional public comment in the room? Sir.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Bill Toller. My wife and I live directly across the alley from 320 West Main. This council has had to make difficult decisions on planned development applications this year. I have good news for you tonight. This one is an easy decision. Meadows and AVH Beaumont were contentious, but those applications met existing planning and use codes. 320 West Main does not meet existing code for a boutique lodge. 6 rooms is not anywhere close to the minimum of 10 keys. Established by City Council and staff after much study and debate in 2017. It was very interesting reading in the microfiche. I appreciate it being stored by the city. I think practically everyone in this room and the community agree that 320 West Main is a treasured piece of Aspen's architectural history. But as you witnessed firsthand during your site visit, the 3 property owners since 2002 have carefully maintained the house. Approval of this land use change is not necessary to save or restore this historical asset. In fact, preservation of this property has already benefited from FAR bonus, substantial side property setback variances, including 22 inches on one side and 3 feet 6 inches on the other, plus parking relief has already been mentioned. There are many city codes that give special consideration to historic properties, but the ordinance enacted in 2017 that established the boutique lodge made no special mentions or exceptions for historic properties that were too small to accommodate at least 10 rooms and a maximum of 14. As you heard from many of the nearby neighbors, our concerns over neighborhood disruption, alley congestion, blockages due to guests and service vehicles are not hypothetical. They are factual and will only get worse with 6 rooms up to 12 guests occupying the house at one time on a 4,500 square foot lot with very limited parking and loading and unloading space. We know this from real experiences since the owner has ignored and violated commercial office zoning designation in effect at the time of his purchase in November 2021. In fact, I really appreciate city zoning enforcement after multiple warnings to the owner took action, and we have now had a cease in the use as a residential property. It appears from the off-market listing that the owner plans to sell this property as soon as he gains the land use change to boutique lodge from this council tonight. The owner has made multiple promises in his management and operations plan to negate the valid concerns voiced tonight and in previous letters to council. But he doesn't have to abide by them. That's going to be someone else's problems. In closing, I respectfully request this council to uphold existing ordinances enacted by your predecessors and deny this proposed boutique lodge development. If the law needs to be updated, then that is a separate action this council can take with due process. I really appreciate all of the service that you provided this community. It requires a lot of your time and it's well appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple more online. I'm going to go back to the online and then see if there's any more in the room. So if you could unmute Lauren Thomas, please. Lauren, if you can hear us, you can speak now. Lauren, are you still available?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, and thank you so much. I appreciate the time to speak.
Yes, just please state your name for the record, and then you'll have about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, great. My name is Lauren Thomas. My family has lived in Aspen since the 1960s, and I've enjoyed living and learning about the history of Aspen and the people who built it through grit, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to one another. In particular, the Elijah family moved to Aspen when most gave up. Lawrence Elijah, as you've heard, kept the Hotel Jerome open and gave room and board to the 10th Mountain Division soldiers. Aspen's greatest treasures are not only its mountains and history, but the spirit of the community. My aunt spent more than 20 years on mountain rescue. Avalanche rescue is particularly dangerous. While many times she came back and told me happy endings, too many times she told me stories of uncovering dead bodies and bringing them back to their families. Yet through those triumphs and tragedies, risk and self-sacrifice, she continued to serve because she believed that being part of a community means contributing to something larger than yourself. That's the Aspen I know, and that's the Aspen who shaped who I am today, a larger sense of belonging. After reading the letters submitted by the project's only opponents, the immediate neighbors of 320 West Main, 2 of which are out-of-town homeowners, Bill and Melanie, and Wendy and Alex.
Let's not personalize this. Please stick to your comments about the project.
Okay. I was struck by how different their perspective is from the Aspen that shaped my family. And I understand there's about 30 plus letters of support from people that are full-time residents of the city. These neighbors are writing from their perspective as second homeowners. It's a perspective of self-convenience and self-interest. Well, there's always concerns of alleyway congestion, pedestrian traffic. It represents a really narrow perspective, not of a community perspective. Ironically, many of the commercial use cases would actually increase the impacts that the neighbors claim to fear. And arguably, there is more oversight and responsibility on the owner through the Paepcke Lodge. There is a strict operational management plan, and that would follow if there was a sale on the property, which there is no plan to do. The owner's first choice of proposing a small 6-room lodge shows the sensitivity to the impact of the neighborhood, environmental responsibility, and prioritizing environment preservation over profit, and keeping this historic landmark a part of Aspen's soul. Also, the neighbors chose to buy in a mixed-use commercial zone, and with that comes issues relating to alleyway and parking, which the management plan addresses. Thank you so much for your time. This is obviously a matter that I love because I love this town so much.
Thank you for your comments. We would now go to Alex Young online. If you can demute Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Richards and council members. My name is Alex Young, Wendy Sturgis' husband, and also an owner of 314 West Main Street, the historic carriage house immediately east of 320 West Main Street. I'm here to respectfully urge council to deny the application to convert 320 West Main Street to boutique lodging. I might also add in response to that last comment that 314 West Main was our primary residence until my wife we had to relocate to London for her job. My central concern is simple. There is no physical barrier of any kind between our two properties. I hope when council had the opportunity to visit the site on June 1st, they saw firsthand that the pathway between our houses runs almost entirely on our land, not on 320 West Mains. And yet, unauthorized renters in the past have repeatedly treated our property as an extension of their rental, with no idea where one property ends and the other begins. I also want to flag a specific concern about the staff report. The blue boundary line depicted in the graphic on page 2 misrepresents where the actual property line falls. The graphic places the entirety of the non-historic pavers on the 320 side, when in reality the majority of those pavers are on our property at 314. Indeed, it also shows our parking pad within the property line of 320 West Main. The true property line sits only 22 inches from the bay window on the east side of 320. We ask the council to take note of this discrepancy before making a decision. The applicant proposes relocating the pathway to the west side of 320 West Main, but that does nothing to establish a boundary between our properties. With only one on-site non-ADA parking space for 6 guest rooms, a 33% parking variance, guests will inevitably overflow onto our land, including our sole parking space, as they've done before. And we must raise a liability question that has not been addressed yet. The slope between our two properties is steep and without barrier. In the past, renters at 320 West Main have sledded down that slope and struck the fence at Annabelle Cabin. If a lodge guest does the same or simply loses their footing and falls on the slope, or a level property above, and is injured on our property, what prevents them from naming us in a lawsuit? Who bears that risk? Without a physical barrier, these are not hypothetical concerns. They are inevitable ones. I respectfully urge council to deny this application. Thank you very much, Mayor Richards and council members, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. We will come back to the room. Please come forward. I don't know your name from this far away.
Hello, my name is Whitney Larkin Pulling. I have been a resident of Aspen since COVID, a COVID refugee from New York City, but I've been coming to Aspen my entire life. I learned to ski here. So it's been about 40 years of being an Aspen visitor and part-time resident, and now full-time. Well, I support this project because so much of Aspen's charm has been lost. Like, we have the places like the Molly and the White Elephant that I don't think are that visually appealing. And we lost Mountain Chalet, the interior is there. And so I think it's really important to preserve what's left, and especially since these people were the owners of the Hotel Jerome, I think that speaks a lot to the quality of this project and the interiors of that house. It's been so well maintained. So I really hope that people can stay there and see how people lived 100 years ago. Thank you.
You're the shortest one of all. So, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment in the room? There's anyone else online? I see no more hands up. I am going to close the public hearing and bring this back to council on the council table. We are a little past when we normally would do a dinner break. I did not realize some of the first reading items would go as long as they had. We have not planned on any dinner break at this point. Council, if we would like to discuss it and see if there seems to be support for one direction or another, we can do that. There is a question that's been raised about the property line, which I do wonder a little about, and I hate to make a suggestion to continue this, but that is always a possibility if others feel they need more information to be able to understand that element. Otherwise,
proceed with questions and conversation myself.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Why don't you ask the first question then? Be perfect.
Great. Should we have applicant and staff come up?
Sure.
Okay.
See who the questions are for. I wasn't sure if they're for us or them, or how you want to talk about this.
My questions, I
Okay.
think, are for
I do
both.
want to make one comment first before we go to questions. So, okay. Mr. Rose, what are...
I was just informed that there was another speaker online that wasn't recognized.
I see no more hands up.
His name is...
Pardon?
His name is Kevin.
There's a Kevin DiCarlo down there. Yes, sir. He's just now come on there. He wasn't there before, and he has not raised a hand to speak in the meeting. And
Okay, I'm sorry. He thought he didn't have to raise his hand. I apologize.
okay, thank you. No, I was double checking that. There's been a number of comments made about the difference between changing a code application, and the ability to do a variance on code. We do variances fairly regularly on the code for good reason and for unique circumstances. So I don't know if we'd like the city attorney to talk about that or not, but the variance request seems to be the difference between 10 keys and 6. And if you'd like to address that, Ben, that'd be great. I want to personally say that I understand that things were passed in 2017 and things were passed in 2010 and things were passed in well before then, that over time councils have changed or modified. And I look back to 2017 as the year when they did not regulate STRs. They left the door open for STRs everywhere all the time. And that is something that we had to introduce codes during COVID when STRs totally overtook our community. And so I don't think there was necessarily perfection in anything that was passed before, and there's probably not perfection in things we pass today. And that's why we have an ability to do a variance or to change codes as necessary. Thank you.
Yeah, just some brief comments on that, and I'm happy to go into detail depending on how successful my response is to your inquiry. But, I think we obviously have a very rigorous land use code, both in terms of uses and dimensions. And also, in Aspen's legacy, we also have a lot of plan developments. And I think a plan development is a very heightened review. It's a 3-step process that requires 2 visits with either Planning and Zoning Commission or Historic Preservation Commission, and a couple visits in front of City Council for first reading and second reading. And so it's a rigorous process. And there's disagreement out in the planning world universally about whether or not plan developments are too frequently used or not from one community to the next. But I do think that they are a common tool across jurisdictions to grant site-specific flexibility related to uses or dimensions. And so certainly there was a clear intention around the code for boutique lodges. It was a new set of code. I was relatively new to the city when it was passed, but I think we were experiencing, with council's desire to limit new market rate residential in our commercial zone districts, we were starting to see lodges in name only that were more functioning as residential uses as discussed. I think it was very clear what the intention of the code was. The number 10, I've heard the conversation about that number. It was intentional. It was certainly an outcome of conversation at the council table. But also in that code was some allowances for reducing that number for particular circumstances. If this project were to have come in as a 10-unit boutique lodge, the process would have been with Planning and Zoning Commission as a conditional use. We would not be going through a plan development. Because of the historic preservation components of this project and the desire of the applicant, I think of staff as well, to preserve that interior if at all possible, staff felt it appropriate to put forward the consideration as a plan development to provide flexibility to the stated uses and number of lodge units that were allowed or that were described by the very clear code on boutique lodges. There's no doubt about it. But I think the intersection of plan development, the language around boutique lodges, it seems that there's also support for granting flexibility when appropriate.
Thank you for addressing that, Ben.
Can I clarify one additional thing?
Yeah.
The staff report, and I believe staff's position, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong, is that no variance is being requested here, that this is strictly an application of the code as written. So I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
you mentioned the word variance, and I think that carries with it very specific
Legal
criteria.
terms.
Correct. I don't think staff's position has been that this needs or requires a variance approval. And so,
I used the wrong term in asking about,
thank you for that.
As a term of art, I apologize for that. But you have answered the question about the site-specific variations that are allowed in a planned unit development.
That's correct.
And the intersection of the codes. All right, thank you. Now your questions, Bill.
Thanks. I don't know, Ben, if you want to tackle this one or who the most appropriate person to tackle is, but I don't need super specific dates, but could we have a little bit of history and context of the shift away from residential on Main Street and into the current form? I think that context is helpful.
Yeah. In response to, I think, community conversations about the intersection of commercial use and residential use in our commercial zones, I believe in 2012, there was it might even started a year or two earlier, conversation about particularly the commercial core, commercial lodge zone district, the C1 zone district, which are those kind of fringe areas around the commercial core. There started to be a series of ordinances precluding new market rate residential in our commercial zones. It was gradual over time. Mixed use zone district, particularly along Main Street, was not included in that prohibition of new market rate residents until 2022. It was one of the outcomes of the 2022 moratorium, when new market rate residential was precluded in the mixed use zone district.
And new doesn't just mean new development, right?
It also means precluding a change of use from commercial to market rate residential. I was the planner on this particular property when a previous owner requested a move back from commercial to residential, and that was actually precluded for another reason, in that residential on Main Street, even before this prohibition, it was discouraged. New residential was discouraged by a reduction in allowable floor area. Because this is a historic property and had an established floor area, we couldn't get down to that. Reduced floor area for residential use, and so it would have created a nonconformity. And one of the criteria for a change in use is that it's not going to create sort of a nonconformity in terms of things that go on in the land use code. So I will just say that for the last, let's say, 16 years, let's go back to 2010, there has been a series of ordinances that have precluded new market rate residential, either new development or change of use and also expansion of existing market rate residential in those zone districts. Most recent being the preclusion on Main Street, 2022. But certainly, I think for a long time, a discouragement of new market rate residential sort of along Main Street with a floor area reduction that was associated with either new or converted residential to residential use.
Got it, thanks. The current zoning on this particular property is mixed use?
Correct.
Some people talked about commercial office, which I don't think there's such a thing as specifically commercial office, right? There's something called commercial, but there's not commercial office. At least today.
Yeah, back in Aspen's history of zoning, there were differentiations in different kinds of commercial uses. Today it's commercial, and a whole range of different types of commercial uses are allowed. And so in this zone district, as is the case with other zone districts where commercial uses are allowed, it could be office, it could be service, it could be restaurant and bar as described, it could be retail, it could be a number of things that all fit under this larger umbrella of commercial use.
But, okay, let's talk about the mixed use, which it's called today. So could that be a bar today?
Yes.
Could it be a nightclub today?
Yes.
Could it be a restaurant today?
It could.
Could it be a retail store today?
It could.
I'm just throwing out a few examples to understand the alternatives here.
Doctor's offices, architecture offices, real estate offices, et cetera.
Yoga studio?
Yes.
Mortuary? Like the Sardi house?
Yeah. There's probably some state rules that would govern that as well.
Okay, putting aside the historic aspect of this for a moment, which I know, especially this wrinkle of the interiors, if they had a way to convert this into a 10-room property, can you confirm that they would go directly to planning and zoning for a conditional use and not be in front of us at all?
I can't think of a reason why that wouldn't be the case.
With the
That's
parking?
true of a property right next
There were
door.
10.
Well, so there is an intersection. Again, typically, if a boutique lodge was meeting that conditional use number that's in the code of 10 to 16, I think, there's a conditional use associated with that. Is a Planning and Zone Commission decision. Because of the historic preservation outcomes on this property over time, there is a parking waiver for any new parking requirements on this property that was part of original historic preservation approvals. That's on the plat. It's a plat note. And so, I do think that there's a whole series of fairly rigorous conditions for boutique lodge. To my understanding of the application, those conditions are broadly met, which is why there was general support for this proposal. And my understanding is it would go straight to Planning and Zoning Commission as a conditional use.
Would that be true whether it's a new build or a conversion of a property immediately next door to this specific property, assuming they could meet the parking requirements and whatever else, right?
Yeah, any place on in the zone district, a boutique lodge could be established with a conditional use review.
Great. One of the commenters made a comment about an owner could use the property for 90 days throughout the course of the year. Is that consecutive or cumulative?
Cumulative. For all lodge uses, you're allowed up to 30 days consecutive, and 90 days cumulative for the entire year.
Could this property be rented out as a whole by one guest or tenant, whatever you want to call it?
Yes, I don't think the code would
You could
disallow that.
Like a block of rooms for a wedding for a month or something.
This one might be more for Scott and Sarah, or maybe both. What happens if this doesn't work? Do you want to go This is the first example of a lodge this small, certainly. And I don't want to come across skeptically, and I applaud your entrepreneurialism and your enthusiasm here. But I do want to talk about what happens if it doesn't work. So you try this for a couple of years, hypothetically. It costs way more to run than what you expect. You're losing money on it. What happens to this property?
Well, I can
Go ahead.
jump in just from a planning perspective. You go through a change in use process. You look at what's allowed in the zone district and go back to commercial, something like that. So, yeah, there's.
But the management
always an
plan and the
option.
designation of the
It's tied-
interior would remain.
The management plan is tied to the boutique lodge because
Okay,
if you
but
have
the
a commercial
interior
use.
preservation would be tied to the
believe
building
so.
forever or just to the boutique lodge?
Yeah, I think we would have to get real technical in the code about unwinding the plan development because we would no longer need it, because there wouldn't be a lodge use and the interior, it would get very complicated. So I guess I don't have a black and white answer for you other than there'd be required review processes, like at least a change in use at a minimum to go in a different direction. Ben, do you want to add? I
concur with that.
Okay.
I think that's all my questions at the
Okay,
moment.
we can come
Thanks.
back if
Thanks,
anything else pops up. Anyone else ready with a question? John? And then we'll keep jumping around.
Yeah, I had a couple, I think, for Ben. When was the boutique hotel ordinance passed? 2017?
2017. It was 2 moratoria ago.
2 moratoria.
I wish we didn't use that metric to measure time. I wish you didn't have enough data points.
Okay,
The
let's keep going. Let's
the
keep
last
going.
flurry of code, the two flurries of code changes ago. Then we'll use that.
Okay, go ahead.
Better. Nice spin. This is the first boutique hotel that's sought approval.
That's correct.
Okay, I think that's an important point to highlight. I don't have any more questions. Should I make comments?
Let's see if there's any other questions first. Ben, did you have a few questions for staff or anyone else? Or Christine? Pardon me?
I think Sam.
Okay, yeah, I
Do you
wasn't.
wanna- I just have one question.
Okay.
The current kitchen is being replaced by a bedroom, so there is no kitchen proposed in the boutique lodge.
There is a kitchen.
Like a s-
It's located in the front parlor. So when you walk in the front door on the left, there's a kitchen proposed there.
Fully functional kitchen, like
they can prepare
someone could use it as
breakfast.
a residence.
Well, I mean, there's going to be employees on the property that cook breakfast for the guests. And then we were trying to figure out how to lock the pocket doors without damaging them so that the guests don't have access to the kitchen.
Okay, thanks. That was my only question.
Thank you. Did you have some?
I'll try some. I guess it's hard because more comments than questions, but essentially the main question is if there is the behavior that is described by the concerned neighbors of the use of the wrong path, the use of the Tesla charger, the use of their parking, the blocking of a garage, and basically the concern that the alleyway is going to be taken over by a boutique hotel. What really are the repercussions to reprimand that type of behavior? Because, before you answer, those mainly are my concerns about using hope as a strategy, that you're as good a stewards as we believe you are towards this, and it feels like there should be a way to have repercussions if you do not do what you say you're going to do in this regard. And just last thing, because it's a comment, not a question on that, but you can answer, is like, I can picture this being a very nice boutique hotel, but I also can picture it being a huge disturbance to the neighbors in a very unique setting, especially with your immediate neighbor in the carriage house. So I feel discomfort in that and do want some answers as far as greater assurances that this will work out the way you say it will.
I just wanted to ask to clarify, do you want clarification on what they can do as owners as repercussions, or what the city?
I think I'd like to hear from both
Yeah.
sides of the aisle on this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We would follow the progressive enforcement policy that our code lays out, which is initiated by a complaint. For example, I believe there was a complaint put in for someone blocking the alley in the last year, and parking went out and towed the vehicle within the day. So that's kind of a easier, you can solve that quickly. Outside of that, we follow the progressive enforcement policy, where we, start by trying to work with an owner, speak with them, then we'll issue notice of violation. Kate, I haven't had to deal with past notice of violation. Could you speak to? Luckily for me.
So I do think there's language in your land use code that allows us to pursue through the municipal code prosecution against a landowner who violates a land use approval. So to the extent the management plan was part of the land use approval, included all of these rules and sort of regulations, we could pursue a municipal code violation through that avenue. I will say that you're limited in what your municipal code prosecution allows as far as remedies. Usually these are strictly financial, and I think you can understand there may be some frustration with how those are used to incentivize certain change in behaviors. I do think there would be, and I haven't really thought this through, but our land use code also allows neighbors to pursue violations. And to the extent a neighbor was impacted by this, there may be other civil remedies like injunctions and things they could pursue. I haven't really thought about that. I'm not certainly advising. That's not any sort of legal advice to anybody. But it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Now, that puts it on the neighbors, obviously,
Yeah.
to sort of do it at their own cost and all of these things, which I think you're trying to avoid here. But I do think our municipal code will allow us to pursue some sort of violation.
One follow-up before the applicant answers is just, what do you do when the nuisance is sort of short-term? Nobody wants to call the cops every time they're disturbed, or someone parks in their parking spot, or blocks their garage, or uses their Tesla charger. You put a lot of onus on the neighbors to take photos and videos, someone using their front lawn for sledding or something like that. And again, it's just a discomfort because I think it's a very real reality that they've experienced with the short-term renters beforehand. And I'm just trying to think to myself, what are they supposed to do if this does not go as well as described or promised? Again.
I think just the way that our code is written out with progressive enforcement, that's really the option for them, is to take pictures and make a complaint through 311. That's really the only way we're able to enforce on it.
And sorry, I guess with that in the application, you talked about certificate of occupancy review.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's 1 year or 2 years, or you said normally it's 16 and then 10, but we have the option here to make it potentially even 1. And sorry to put the onus on the neighbors, say, is it working or not, and review it in good faith, not give the neighbors too much power. But I'm just saying, if the neighbors did start to experience the block garage, the Tesla charger, after a year, that certificate of occupancy could potentially be pulled because of neighbors.
I think what the audit is more about seeing if it's really being used as a lodge and ensuring it's not being used as a single-family home, to make sure there's been check-ins and check-outs consistent with a boutique lodge
And just
use.
to clarify, the example we provided is just an example, so you could edit that to be however frequent you think is appropriate. Also within our code is the provision that we can perform an audit at any time outside of what you state as well.
And we're fine having the audit added to the ordinance if that's something that you're comfortable with. We have nothing to hide. We're proposing a management and operation plan that's very strict. There's going to be on-site staff. Scott is saying from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. after hours on-call managers. So the neighbors don't have to call the city. They can talk to the staff who's going to be managing the guests, who's going to be managing the alley a lot better than it's being managed right now. We were on site a week ago and it was blocked by some landscapers that had nothing to do with Scott. So I want to be clear that this management and operations plan, one is voluntary. Like, Scott is not required to do this. He wants to do this. and it's binding, it's enforceable. We're also, we have to enter into a development agreement with the city, just like this management plan would be recorded. The city would be party to it. So there's a lot more management and control of the property by having a boutique lodge. So we hear the neighbors, but we've also not gotten any comments on our proposed management plan from the neighbors. And this has been available since HPC, since we heard their comments. You know, so I hear what you're saying. We have the same concerns. Scott doesn't want to open a lodge and have disturbance. Like, he doesn't want to bother the neighbors. He wants to fit in, and that's why this is so strict.
One question on that with the management plan. I saw it was like 8 to 6 p.m. Where I live, we got the Romero group. A lot of times after hours or on the weekends, they're the guys coming up from Basalt or Carbondale. Do you have an idea of who you might use for that and where they might be located?
Have you gotten that far yet?
No, we haven't.
Because I think that is a grave concern that your emergency after hours is not someone who lives over a half hour away.
Well, and maybe that's something that if Scott's amenable, you can add to the ordinance. You know, you can add to this management plan. Like I said, we're not trying to hide anything. This is a really good project for Aspen, and we want to make it work. So if that's important to you, we can figure that out.
Completely fine.
We don't want this to die because of that.
Understood.
Sophie or Ben, I think you're probably the best on this. In the STR permits right now, there's a lot of regulations that address subjects just like that, right? Response times, and
Yes. Yeah.
and behavior of tenants, et cetera, et cetera. Does the boutique lodge rules have similar or identical requirements, or could we adopt the STR sort of rules as part of this to mitigate some of these issues?
I think, from my understanding of the management plan that's been proposed, it goes further, I would say, in terms of requirements around immediate owner response to concerns about how the thing is functioning. In the STR, I mean, we clearly have sets of expectations about how those function, but really it is a complaint-based thing, and after 3 strikes, you know, we have the ability to pull a permit. And so I do think that, you know, if council is concerned about, you know, where a responder might, and that's a provision within the STR, is having somebody local who can respond within X period of time. If that is a desire of council, I don't think it would be an unwise thing to include.
And what about the 3 strikes concept? How would that work? Could that work?
I was going to say, I don't know that we have a 3-strike rule on anything or anyone.
We do, on STRs.
No, I mean, excuse me, I was thinking about existing, like, permitted hotels. Would we tell a hotel, we've had 3 police calls for tenants in the past year, and so therefore you no longer have a Limelight hotel? Or, I mean, I just want to be realistic about where we take this.
It's an interesting thing to.
I will say that I
don't know that we have that
I do
ability.
think that the progressive enforcement policy that has been previously described that applies to all other land uses in the city, I think is probably the most established and most clear path for us to respond to concerns with violations of approvals.
I can just say legally, I see an issue with saying the land use approval is sort of revocable.
Yeah.
These things generally are considered, you're adopting an ordinance, so it's kind of placing law on it. I don't know that, I think that there might be some takings issues associated, and I haven't thought through it all, but I would be concerned about that if you were to try to go that route in this particular instance. I will say that I think one thing we always have, and we use it very sparingly, is if somebody was violating a land use ordinance, zoning code, we can enjoin them. And we could go get an injunction, potentially, that precludes them from operating if they are not consistent with this management plan. I think that still applies here. Then you're subject to a court order, you violate it, and it's like violating a court order, and you can face some pretty severe punishment from a court in that scenario. So I do think you have these civil remedies under our land use code that we can use to prohibit certain behavior, stop certain behavior, enjoin certain behavior, abate certain behavior. And I think that's what we would probably advise you of if faced with that legal question
In the future.
in the future.
Thank you.
One more.
Yeah, one more from Sam.
I guess more of a comment than a question, but a question on this part is like Alex and Wendy's home, 314. I do have a deep sympathy for the change to their property and the rules that they're under, and would want to know what it would take for them to be able to create, I'm going to say, more barriers between their house. Because, I'm on the Pickens County Assessor's website. The property line does look like it does just come straight off of the 320 West Main. And I do respect their concerns that for years they lived next to commercial offices, and that it looks like that path belongs to 320 West Main. And I know there's going to be a gate, but if it's not a locked gate, people are still going to go to that side. And I kind of want to know what flexibility Alex and Wendy have, or any future owner of that house, to make potential changes to separate the properties more if they're not owned by the same owner and they're used for different purposes.
I'll let the applicant talk a little bit about the conversations that they've had with their neighbors about, and some of the agreements related to that pathway and shifting the pathway to the west. And I'd also, if I get this wrong, Jillian, please jump in, but, I think that there was, when the historic lot split was granted and the carriage house and the Smith Elijah house were sort of conveyed, and there was real clear intention from historic preservation to have it perceived that those two things were related to each other in their kind of historic pattern. And so fences and those kinds of things were discouraged and prohibited in the approval with Historic Preservation Commission. Should that condition desire to be changed, I think it's a revisit with Historic Preservation Commission for whatever kind of improvements would be established between the two properties.
And we talk about fences.
Can I follow that one up? I was wondering the same thing, and I was wondering, what about a low shrubbery
That's what I was going to ask.
type of
The landscaping.
foot
not just
or 2
fences.
feet? Would that violate the HPCs further, or if it only extended a short distance from the backyard?
I think that there's a variety of options, but my sense
You'd
is
want to see
that
HPC look at it?
Well, actually, in the lot split on the plat is a note that there should be no separation between the properties. It says, the HPC, or let me start here. These two structures are strongly associated architecturally and establish a strong historic context on the site. The HPC will review any future development on the property. However, as a condition of approval of this lot split, a fence shall not be allowed to be constructed between the two newly created lots, which would separate them visually from each other. And so that's similar to the parking that was included in the plat note, that it
Well, it just strikes me as interesting as to whether a fence is the same thing as low-level landscaping, that is just kind of directional or wayfinding, as they say, or kind of blocking you off without it separating the two residences.
Yeah, and I think that when it was contemplated, the visual separation was a big part of the conversation. Sarah actually was part of that conversation. I think you worked here when that was happening. But additionally, I think that if you were to bring it back to HBC, you'd have to look into the legalities of changing that. But I'm unsure of when the neighbors bought the property, but that's kind of part of buying a historic property and going through that process is you understand those implications that you might not be able to do what an undesignated property could.
Okay, thank you. Did I cut you off?
No, I was going to say something similar, because once again, two different land uses, same property is a very awkward situation.
Yeah.
With that, I guess my final comment would just be, if approved, I would want to do it with a strict fairness around it, to make sure it's run the way that it should be.
Okay.
For the neighbors and for the sake of making sure it's successful, because I think there are real concerns from the neighbors about this and the alleyway usage.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any further questions for our applicants? No, I think we could go into deliberations then at this point. I realize this, John,
I just have comments, no questions.
okay. I was going to say, I realize this is a difficult issue. I think your concerns that you're raising are shared by all of us. And I also think that there's a lot to weigh here in terms of the good and the bad. I would make one really quick comment for myself, is that I believe I was on the council at the time the Hotel Jerome was coming through with the new ownerships who used to own the Broadmoor down in Colorado Springs. And they had some very different plans for the hotel that included stripping the entire historic lobby and putting in marble floors. And I know I objected to that. I said, this is just part of what is the Hotel Jerome, and this is the public space of the Hotel Jerome. And that ended up coming to fruition, and thank heavens we get to see that. The owners of the Broadmoor sold it about 8 months later and said it was because of the tile floor. They couldn't get that marble. I don't think it was because of the $30 million turnaround they were able to make on the property, but I do value what is interior to some of our historic structures. And so I just had, since the Jerome has been mentioned so many times, that was the only interior elements we saved. It was important for the town. The J-Bar wouldn't be the J-Bar with a big glossy white marble floor like the Broadmoor. So, it is hard to hold the elements of what is character together, what is neighborhood compatibility, what is good for the future, what is actually preventing harm. Because if an application came through for a bar in this location, it goes straight to P&Z, and there wouldn't be anything to say you can't do it.
I don't think that's right. I think just
Straight to permit.
license.
Yeah, exactly. And they wouldn't have a parking requirement because of the previous. It could be something that would be going till 2 o'clock in the morning in ways that people wouldn't like. So this is what the mixed-use zone tends to bring us over time. And with that, those would be my comments for now. But John, you've been anxious to go, and then we'll come down the line.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Sam, I definitely sympathize with the neighbors' concerns, just like I sympathize with all the neighbors in the West End who have to go through endless construction year-round. It does seem to me that we have appropriate safeguards in place to address the neighbors' concerns should problems arise. I think this project deserves our support. Staff supports it. It's on transit routes. It's walking distance to everything. And it's a really great starting point for preserving one of the few historic interiors we have left in the city. And again, this is the first built boutique hotel that has been approved since this ordinance came into being in 2017, 9 years ago. I support this.
Thank you, John. Christine?
Thanks. Thank you for everyone and your comments and thoughtful deliberation on this. Applicants usually come to us asking for more, and this is asking for less. It's asking for fewer rooms than what would be approved. I like that this project is preserving our history, our town's rich history, and allowing the public to access it through potentially public tours, reservations, if they can make those. I think the zoning is appropriate. The rezoning is appropriate for this neighborhood. The house on the corner, I looked up after you noted that it was a STR, is 7 bedrooms and did not have to go through this extensive process and provide management plans, and did not get this review. We have a rich history of small lodges in Aspen. This handout lists some that are gone: the Little Red Ski House, the Snow Queen, and these were what made Aspen special, and we've lost a lot of them. I understand the issues raised by the neighbors, but given the zoning, I feel comfortable with the assurances and the agreements that are presented here tonight, and I'm hopeful that this is a benefit to the community. I would support something similar to annual audits that we do in the STR renewal process that kind of parallels that process to make sure that this property is meeting the intent that its application is asking or is representing here.
Sounds reasonable. Sam, your comments?
Yeah, I do think this has the ability to be a beautiful boutique lodge. I shared John and Christine's comments about what you asked for and the risk compared to what it could be. It's always hard, it's your property. And I just want it to be the best for you but for your neighbors as well. So I just would like to see it approved with a property manager that is close by. I'd like to see the neighbors, especially Alex and Wendy, have options for better separation to avoid nuisances. And I'd like the neighbors to have the information needed to contact the city staff that hopefully never gets to progressive enforcement, but so they know how to report bad behavior and hopefully avoid it in the first place, but prevent it in the future. So those are the three things the conditions that I'd like to support it with. Otherwise, again, I do appreciate you bringing this forward, preserving the interior. I'm glad you brought up like the Low Red Schoolhouse and others, like those don't exist anymore. So ski house, not the preschool. And that again, that it's not gonna, and to avoid the potential that it could be worse. It could be a bar. It could be something that would be even worse for the neighbors, unfortunately. So these are the things within our control and our peer review. So yeah, that's where I stand, and thank you again.
Let me ask Ben, or perhaps, do we need to add an amendment to the ordinance that mentions the property manager will be on call within 30 minutes?
I think it needs to be at least 30 minutes, yeah.
Within 30 minutes? Do we need to add that?
I think that would be good as a condition of approval to add to the management plan.
Okay. So, but that's attached to the ordinance, and we'll make that in the motion. Okay. Thank you for that. That was the only one I could really make sure before we go further. Bill, your comments?
Yep.
I'm in agreement with everything that was said at this table so far. So I won't reiterate that, other than to say I appreciate everyone's participation and feedback and concern. Totally get it. The additional layer that I'll add is that I'm a proponent of vitality on Main Street, and I'm really happy to see new activity, vibrancy on Main Street that has occurred recently. San Ambrose Restaurant, I think, is a wonderful addition. I think the Molly and the White Elephant are wonderful additions. There's a grocery store, a little gourmet grocery store coming where Design Workshop was. I think that's going to be a wonderful addition. I'm excited about that, and I'm supportive of it. My concern here that I do not want to make a condition of this approval, but I would like to keep an eye on, and I'd like staff to contemplate this, is does this provide an avenue to allow residential use, limited residential use in a zone district that's not what is currently intended. I don't think that's what Scott's trying to do. I think that we have protections against that with the lodge audit, but maybe we need more protections in the future, so that in order to prevent these from becoming limited use residences.
Yeah.
So again, I don't want to make that a condition of this. This is the first. I think it will be an example, and I think we should watch it and learn from it and adapt to it. But I'm supportive, and I hope that Scott will be a good neighbor and operate this very professionally. I wish him success. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with it, and if it's a model that others can adopt or not. But I think overall this is a good thing for our community.
Thanks, Bill. Well said. A couple of comments first for me. One is I just want to note overall that our parking enforcement and that sort of management within the community has in the past perhaps been focused very heavily on the commercial core. And what we've really been seeing over the past year, year and a half is we need more focus in the residential neighborhoods. The Meadows hearings kind of emphasize that very much, the amount of construction that we have and this. And I'm kind of happy to say I think our parking department is really fully staffed up now and has been lacking before. But I think that that's just kind of an issue we need to handle to make sure that we are out there enough on the alleys and on those other issues. And, you know, I used to be a delivery driver in this town for 20 years. I know what the alleys are like, and they can be a mess. And we need to, you know, work on that snow removal a little better so that it's not necessarily blocking these alleys that are now getting so much use, and to work on how often we're tagging in and looking through what's happening in the alleys. I think it's worth noting that the management plan will stay with this property, with this use, regardless of ownership going forward. And, you know, I'd like to think that Scott will be here and the owner for quite a long time, but I know my approvals on anything are for a 20-year horizon, and it's the management plan that really ties this property to its obligations, regardless of ownership. I will go from there to just say I think it's a well-thought-through project. I think that would be really special for anyone to be able to stay in this hotel. I think that, you know, this is going to have a different profile of a guest than, say, some of the other lower-end lodging we used to have in the past, or maybe the way the STR guests even behave, because STR guests often think that they're untraceable and no one will ever see them again. But hotel guests have a registration and again, often are in not going to be this disruptive type of individual. But we're going to stay on top of it no matter what. As we go to close this item out, I'm going to solicit a motion to approve ordinance number 9, series of 2026, 320 West Main Street Plan Development Project Review, Conditional Use Review, Growth Management Quota System Review, Transportation and Parking Management Review, with the amendment to be made to the management plan to commit that a after-hours emergency management personnel will be available within a half-hour distance from Aspen, within a half hour from a phone call.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Do we want to add language about auditing?
Yes, and thank you. He got a little
Offer
faster.
a friendly amendment.
No, and as a friendly amendment, I would suggest that we start the audit at year 2 so that any of the remodeling can be done. The first year may not be a full year for bookings, and continue that on an every 2-year basis afterwards to continue that this is a hotel. Would that be sufficient?
Yes.
Could I suggest that the clock starts upon certificate of occupancy, not upon this approval?
That would be sufficient, and then it would be due 2 years after the certificate of occupancy. So they have a year to launch and ramp up. Okay? So that would be the friendly amendment.
John needs to agree to.
Yes.
I agree. I'll second that amendment.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. That's what I was going to do that. Thank you, Kate, for taking control there.
problem.
And I think that covers all the items that people wanted to have a specific amendment on the resolution, or the ordinance, rather. Okay. If there's no further comments from anyone?
If I could just ask both the applicant and staff if there's any questions about those amendments or any clarity needed. Because my understanding is, I think the first one was very clear that there's a condition of approval that the management plan include the provision that a emergency manager be
Available to service the property within a half-hour distance.
and
Within a half hour. They can fly if they want to. Yeah, I know.
the second condition of approval being that there shall be an audit 2 years after CO and 2 years every 2 years thereafter.
Okay, there. All right, was there any further questions on that? And staff and applicants are okay with this? Okay. Nicole, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. I am just going to say we're going to keep an eye on this. As Sam has said, I appreciate the concerns of the neighbors. We're all concerned with change, but it is a growing and living town, and we need to grow sometimes in different ways. So there we go.
Motion.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Before we vote, is there any other final comments? Again, thank you all for participating, and will you call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for pushing through on that. I didn't realize we were going to get a full presentation from Pat.